Finance Budget Workshop Committee meeting for May 3rd to order. It is now 6:03. All stand and pledge the flag, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, technically, it's your meeting, Mr. Wolf, so you want to announce who's here, or?
All right, we have in attendance Mr. Miller, Mr. Strobel, Mr. Scott,
Okay.
Mr. Durso, Mr. B. Scott, and Michael Wolf from the administration. We have Dr. C, Mr. Small, sorry. Oh, of course, Mr. Rathke, Mr. Harris, and Kathleen Haynes from the administration. All right, we have just 3 items on the agenda tonight. Obviously, we want to talk about the 2018-19 preliminary budget. As you know from the timing, we have to pass our budget by the 30th of June, and you have to have that available for public view for 30 days. So that backs it up to, I believe, May 20th, because the 18th of June is our last voting meeting. And the fact that we were going to have this approved for public view by the committee of the whole, we'll have to have a special voting meeting just for the budget purposes. So what the purpose of tonight is really to put a fine point on the budget, try to identify all the items that we have in the budget. If we have any questions, anything we need to move in or out, look at the enrollment staffing, make sure we have the appropriate levels that we're comfortable with. And we have some cost-saving initiatives that were discussed at the administration level. I think we want to carry those into this meeting and have some discussion with the administration and amongst ourselves on some of the things we can start thinking about, because we have to start thinking, a little cliche out of the box, but it is true. We have the budget concern, and we need to look at some other ways to drive more money into curriculum as much as we can. So, having said that, in the absence of Mr. Hurley, one of the things I was telling Mr. Harris I really wanted to get done, because we all had comments, concerns about it, is the large increases in the percentage of some of the building budgets that were presented to the board. So Mr. Hurley and Mr. Harris were to speak to those. The increase for the high school was very minimal, so I don't know that it's worth discussing. I think it was like $7,000 or $8,000 over last year's budget. But some of the other increases for the Amity, Monocacy, in middle school were very large. So we wanted to drill down, and we've been asking for some information for some time. So we'd like to finish that discussion up too, because like I said, we have to put a fine point on what our budget is. Just as I say that, Mr. Hurley has arrived. So,
can I ask a question?
Sure, absolutely.
I know it wasn't at the last board meeting, so I don't know what was discussed, but I don't see the principals here.
Mr. Hurley, don't be shy. Come on.
Yeah, we have Robbie's questions.
Well, we had asked on multiple occasions for some detail for the building level budgets, and quite frankly, we haven't got back what we were expecting to get back. So Mr. Hurley and Mr. Harris are going to be able to speak. I'm going to ask them to speak on their behalf as far as what they're in a building budget. You obviously have labor, you have lights, you have electricity, all those things. You have the educational piece, and then you have everything else, all the wants. And what I've heard in emails is, well, if the administrators don't ask for it, they don't get it. But I would like to know, and I know other people have been asking for some time, where is the baseline for what their budget actually is? And then here's all the list of what we want in addition to that. So at least you can be aware of, these are the 10 things, 5 things that they want in addition to what their building budget is, and allow us to see it and discuss it, and, you know, if needed, approve or disapprove some of what's in there. So just getting a lump sum, here it is, take it or leave it, this is what we got.
So then, Mr. Hurley and Mr. Harris will talk to that, so I guess I'll assume then you guys had good conversations with them and know exactly, I don't want to say exactly, it's hard to know exactly what anybody's really thinking, but you guys have a good handle on what the schools need. You spoke to the principals.
What we wanted to put it into was the Christmas wish list that some of the principals were sending forward. It wasn't, I mean, they had good intentions, but sometimes they're asking for well far and beyond what we can actually afford. But in the past, they were said, hey, if you don't ask for it, you don't get it. So it's a careful balancing act that we have to do. And going forward, that's not how we're going to be doing the building-based budgets. It's going to be, and since things have been realigned, so it's a little hard to compare apples to apples this year because we have line items that have been realigned. But next year, it'll be a much smoother process. And I think with the principals getting training before the budgeting process by Kathleen, she sat down with them and said, this is what your building costs. That's why this year, and you wouldn't know this, but because you're new to the board, it didn't have building-based budgets on my weekly report. That's why that's on there now. Okay. So we track what they're spending, and we like to know. So, for example, Amity is at 100% of their budgeted amount. For other areas, they may be at 60, 70, 80%. And those spends come at various times of the year.
Right.
August, September, January. So I noticed last year, some schools had spent 75%, and it's May. Like, what's going on? We budgeted certain amounts, and then through cost savings, through Kathleen and Lauren, we got things cheaper. So we need to adjust and make sure that the budgets are at least closer to being accurate.
Mike, I have a question. We had been asking for a breakout of the 600 cost center. Are we going to see that? And actually, looking at some of the other variances year over year, I think a breakout of the 300 and 700 would be good too. Are we able to see that?
That's what Mr. Harris and Mr. Hurley have been asked to speak to.
I have a question also in regards to like expenses that come in once a year. Do we accrue that expense out over 12 months so it's kind of more of a level playing field versus your expenses are here and then all of a sudden you have a big drop come in, like maybe insurance for the year? I'm not sure what expenses would hit in that way, but do you know if that?
Oh, that's through the business.
When we have annual expenses, we already know this, like the POs. The POs are put into the system in July, so they're encumbered. So those dollar amounts are already in it. So when I'm running my financials, you're seeing on a monthly basis that they're all there. We don't do an accrual and a hit every other month. It's not like a normal business.
Okay.
From a school district perspective, we just pay it when it comes in, but it is encumbered.
Okay.
So when I pull reports, I always pull to 6/30, just so I'm seeing the whole year because I know there's a lot of encumbrances in there that I want to see. But on a monthly perspective, when you see it here with your board package, it's the month ending. Now CSI uses a little, so you are
give that
pulling
to me
some.
weekly, right? It's on my weekly report.
And
too.
I pull
It
it
says
by that
encumbered.
date. I pull it by that date on
Yeah.
the weekly report. So the date of that report, that Friday, I have to wait till everybody's done.
Right.
I'll do a double entry and then I'll pull it. Sometimes that's why I was waiting till Sunday to do mine, but
Yeah, but I just like, but it's a cost-based accounting. You're not accruing. You're doing cost.
I'm not doing, it's,
What cash comes in, cash.
it's a kind of a happy medium beast. We do the accrual for the end of the year purposes for the closing out of the books, but on a monthly basis, no, we don't do it.
Okay, so why don't we start where we want to start on something easy, start on the enrollment, staffing, we'll jump around here a little bit. Start looking at that piece. Mr. Harris, do you have anything to add for I think next year, with the grades being combined, you'll be able to smooth out the numbers a little bit, so we have some disparity right now between, AEC and PEC. Any suggestions that you
Well,
have?
Well, in comparing it to years past, I can tell you, right now, we're planning on 0 furloughs at all. This is the year, well, next year is the year where we finally realize the majority of the savings and the efforts of closing Birdsboro. So what we're going to be doing is realigning some staff, and areas where we had to add staff, like for nursing, that we have to cover Immaculate, we don't have to do that. Having that extra nurse also helps us satisfy our nurse sub issue that we have. So we will go back to having a floating nurse who's available. Staffing for teachers, we're right on. We don't have to come down. For counselors, we're right on, so we don't have to come down. So this year, we're not looking at removing any staff at all. What we need to do, though, is realign some staff for supports. For example, in special ed, when Shelley was here talking about the support that she needs, well, we have someone available to fill that spot. Even though that spot was budgeted, we don't have to dig into that pool of money to cover it. We have someone in-house to do that. So the secretary at BEC, because of the results of the audit that was done earlier this year, last year, time goes by so fast, earlier this year, we're going to be able to give athletics some needed support. So that game manager function, to help with the business side of athletics that they're struggling with, will have help. And also with Rob's federal work that he has to do. So that person will be split. So we will be doing some job description changes, but we are staffed right now perfectly. So that's where we have. So the cost savings are basically not having to add people, but we're able to increase our efficiencies and deliver a better product to our students. So once again, no furloughs. We have some classroom size changes, but that's what we do every year. That's not unique to what we do.
I have a staffing question. It came up as far as the one-on-one technology support. There had been some proposals as far as using a teacher, or do we need to get a contractor, or what? I don't think we're adequately set up positioned to support it today, so we need to do something.
Right now, we're looking at additional support for technology and special ed by the assistant principals that are coming on board. We're looking at the expertise, so we're bringing the expertise in-house so that all 3 assistant principals will be added, will be additional support to those buildings, and if we staff correctly, we could bring in the expertise. You are correct, we don't have 100% ability to train every teacher the way we would like. However, with these 3 new bodies we're bringing in, we're looking for expertise in special ed to assist in the IEP meetings, and also having a technology resource person, which will be the new assistant principals also in those buildings. And also, we're looking at also some teachers and stipends and things like that, but we're really looking at increasing our bandwidth by adding the 3 new assistant principals.
Okay, but you are looking at teachers as well, because I've heard comments that, we're strapped for principal. The principal is not going to be available to the school, especially in year 1, as we roll out the program. And transition teachers to use the new technology to build courses, and it's going to take some significant amount of time. A principal would be stretched.
Well, it's the principal and an assistant principal. Or for example, Amity right now does not have an assistant principal. And we're transferring a principal over to that building, Megan Weber, and we're looking at adding an assistant principal right now. The jobs have been posted, it's just been closed. And all 3 principals, Rob, myself, and Michelle, have been looking at the applicants, and we'll be bringing recommendations to the board.
Think you'll be able to find someone that has experience implementing a one-on-one program? Yes?
That's our goal.
If we're not able to find someone or feel comfortable, and Mr. Rathke had mentioned that there are resources from the IU that we could tap into if needed.
We
need
probably
a plan B just in case.
We'll have people who have experience, and we're probably going to have to add support to them also to get it up and going. So we're not looking for the new assistant principal to be the fix-all, end-all, but it will be additional support, just like when Dr. C came on board, additional support that we didn't have here. And finally, we're getting that support, and also in reallocating our resources internally. This is the first year that I've been here that we're not looking to cut, to furlough anyone. We just need to be nimble and realign our resources to be effective.
Can I ask a question? And perhaps you answered it with your questions, and that could be the case. As far as technology with the one-on-one, obviously that's a new program, and there's probably going to be a big need on a daily basis for some help, I would think, anytime you put in something new. An assistant principal helping out in that program, are we going to be able to get to, the teachers that need help, or do you think that's going to be an area where there's going to be more requests for help than that one person's going to be able to provide? And I do have a second question, but you can go to that one first.
Well, it depends on what the help is. We still have an IT department who's staffed to assist in help desk needs. The teachers have had the equipment for a year, so they're going to be asking more educated questions. And we'll talk with Scott and Matt to see what questions are coming out, and as we roll it out, we'll learn. But we want to have more bodies in the building to respond. And if you're finding there's a certain type of question, then we can go to the IU or various consultants and say, this is the expertise that we need. Or also go back to Apple and say, hey, we need more professional development for our staff in this specific area. That's why we let them have the equipment a year early, so they would become familiar with it.
Yeah, my concern is we just don't want to roll it out and then not do it properly and have it come backfire. But
It's not necessarily a technology question. I mean, it's a combination of using it for an educator and technology together. 'Cause
Well-
I don't think you have many technology issues.
I know we talked about, like, at one point, the terminology was thrown out, and we put in my notes, like a technology coach,
Right.
because we're not sure, with the needs, Mr. Matt and his crew are even what we normally do, and then we're adding more, potentially.
Yeah, I don't think it's something Mr. Matt's staff. I mean, there could be some tech issues, but I don't think it's going to be his expertise. It's going to be someone that knows the education and is familiar with technology.
Okay, so I just want to make sure I'm tracking here, so I apologize for all the questions. So one of the assistant principals that we're talking about hiring, hopefully is going to have some strengths in the technology area for the one-on-one, and we feel that that's going to be enough to help the launch of that program, correct?
And to be added support, and I'm sure from the period when the teachers and staff receive the material and as they learn, there'll be certain teachers who become better at it than others and who also can assist their peers. But I don't think that the assistant principals, once again, are going to be the end-all fix for it. We're developing the program, and we're not turning off our textbooks and turning on the iPads. It's a period of rolling it out, and I think Preston mentioned it a while back. It's going to take a few years to really have a full one-to-one program as we write curriculum, develop programming and expertise and comfortability in delivering it through that, and also the students also and the families. So it's going to be a process. But once next year it kicks in, we can assess. I always do 3 months in after Halloween, see how we're doing and what supports are needed.
Are we going to have some type of checkpoints early, maybe in September or whatever timeframe may be, to go back, make sure that, what the feedback the teachers are giving, that we don't, I don't want to get to November, December, January, find out that we've had a problem for a couple months and you kind of missed the opportunity to react to it early.
My checkpoint is always Halloween. I always wait 3 months in, people get comfortable, see where we are, and that gives us enough time before the end of the year to bring some more support in and then roll into the second half of the year. And then we check around Valentine's Day. That's my other checkpoint. We look at what happened up until October, because that gives us 3 months worth of data. And then we roll it into the new year. Right around Valentine's Day, we look at where we're going, and then do we need to correct anything, and then that kind of pushes us into spring break, and then the end of the year.
I did have a question regarding staffing as well with special ed. I know Shelley mentioned that she needed some help, and again, I heard you state that you believe an assistant principal will be able to help out in those areas. Again, Do we think that that's going to be enough to alleviate that? Because,
Yeah, we did put a teaching position
Okay.
Yeah.
last meeting.
Special ed is getting a double hit. They're getting the assistant principals to help on site, but they're also getting the extra help added to the budget.
And that's kind of twofold, because as it was explained to me, Dr. C, you could correct me if I, or Mr. Harris, correct me if I say this wrong, but the caseload per existing teacher is getting to the point where it may exceed the state guidelines. So we may be at that point where we're forced to add a teacher anyway. So it's better to be, and we've had this, contrary to what, we've got some confirmation, comment from the public. We did have this budgeted last year as well. It was, I think it was a coach, but Mrs. Mikowski and others felt that there was more value to have an actual teacher. That way we won't have a situation where the caseload exceeds what the guidelines would be.
So the follow-up to that piece was that at this point, excuse me, that sits as a coach still with the flexibility, because that is a teacher, that if suddenly the caseloads come up, that's a person who can be flexible enough to go and resolve a caseload issue too. It probably at that point means we have to make a decision between the coach continuing as a coach and taking over classroom duties. But if we're going to be in special ed jail, right, then we're going to put that person back in a classroom. And we actually had that conversation with Shelley this afternoon. But at this point, we're okay to have that person be a coach.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you, because I know she mentioned the word coach. We got kicked around a couple times, and I appreciate that. And then I'll hold off for now. Let us keep going. Thank you, I appreciate the time.
Any other questions on the staffing? Any public comment?
I do, actually. Something that I'd like you to consider with regard to having a vice principal in charge of the rollout of the technology. You're aware of the new state furlough law. Furloughs, I know you're not attending any furloughs this year, but furloughs now are based on teacher classroom performance, not seniority. So I find any teacher would be very unwilling to say to their vice principal, who's their supervisor, hey, I'm really struggling with this. I don't feel proficient with this new technology. I don't think any teachers will do that. They're going to want to feel proficient and distinguished in front of the person who supervises them. My concern is, when rolling out this new technology, if you really want to maximize its use, you have to have somebody in front of that teacher with whom they feel comfortable. And if it's going to be a supervisor, that's a whole different relationship. That's why the coaching positions have been created. When it's a coach, it's a teacher and a peer, and you can say, hey, I really can't use this. I really don't know what I'm doing. But a teacher will never say that to a vice principal. Something to consider.
Okay, so that person also could be someone that we bring in from the IU.
Sure,
That
because
would
they're
be a
not in a
neutral person.
supervisory position. They're not going to do my evaluation in 2 months and say, well, she's not proficient with the utilization of this new technology, therefore she's going to be satisfactory. Meanwhile, the other ones are going to be distinguished. Then the next time furloughs come around, the
I think
satisfactory
we've seen
person's
that.
going to go.
We've seen that dynamic play out for years with the building heads. Essentially, my building has no problems. And I think that's the same dynamic that you're going to have.
It's a cultural change on how you make that cultural change. Somebody needs help, you want to give that person help so they're successful, so they're more successful in teaching their students. And I don't know, I understand what the six is saying, I just don't know what the balance is.
Isn't that the basic concept of a manager? Isn't that the basic concept of a manager? You help your people that work for you. I mean, I don't know, I've never been in a situation in management where I didn't help people that I work for. I'm not going to say that it's not possible, that somebody might not come to us for, but there's other people to go to. The assistant principals, if I'm not mistaken, are overflow. They're going to be in addition to, they're going to help out. We still have an entire department
No, we don't. We don't have anyone to help.
Nobody else.
The assistant principal is the person that's going to be the expert for this, to do the role.
Right.
Well, I assume we'll build expertise, but there's no one
The
on staff
company we're
today.
buying it from comes in with training too.
Yeah.
They also have online training, no, not Apple,
Yeah,
with the software.
training all year.
Yes,
There's some training with it as well.
just training.
There's training involved. I think we need to get past that part to find out where the water level is versus trying to staff it for a water level up here. You find out the water level's down here.
But what kind of training is Apple providing? They're training on how to use the tool and the technology, or are they training on how to use it in a classroom, develop classes, and use it with the kids?
The IU doesn't provide any Apple training, they only provide Google training.
They were doing a program, right?
Someone's doing Apple training, right?
Apple.
Apple has been doing Apple training all year.
Is there specific software that's going to be used on it for the classroom?
I think it's something that's still to be determined, right? Selections, or someone needs to assist that as well. Have someone out there Googling for what works best.
So training, and Scott has a better answer to this, but training was provided on all of the things that show up on your iPad. So Keynote, the docs, all of those pieces that kind of come with your iPad, and teachers have received training in all of that this year, and opportunities to go back and try and kind of work through that. So they've done that kind of training with it this year, and Apple did provide that. So,
For how to use the device. His recommendation is not exactly in line with what we're moving forward with, what I heard today.
If I can add some information to that, in regards to that intermediate, Amy's partially correct in what she's saying. Historically, the IU, their training has been very Google-centric in terms of what they are doing. Where it is changing, they're anticipating a new technology director there, and one of the skill sets they're looking for, I did meet with Mr. Richards, who's in charge of that for the IU, and so they are anticipating hiring, given that the end of Boone, there's a few other districts that have gone the direction of Apple, they are anticipating hiring someone with a dual skill set there. Some of the professional development that is done is device agnostic, like for example the SAMR model, which is a curricular model of lesson planning for teachers. That regardless of whether you're using Google or Apple, it doesn't matter there. But she is correct when she does say that historically they have not had that. They've been primarily Google-based there.
But I think it's beyond just how to use a device. I mean, right, as an example, so school starts tomorrow, or, and let's just say, for argument's sake, that the expectation is that every teacher will use it for one class, right? Or, again, I'm just making things up here. Is every teacher gotten training on the curriculum and having the curriculum in place to leverage the devices while in their teaching, as their teaching application. And I don't know, that's the part that I feel like, who's training that? Because I don't know that you're going to be able to hire a principal, an assistant principal, bring them in and expect that person to deliver training to 300 teachers or 150 teachers at the high school, whatever it is, and they're all going to be able to walk in day one and just start delivering a class, section. If you're a history teacher, I'm required to do one section this year, and next year I'll do 3 sections, or
It's the training and coaching that's needed.
whatever it is. I don't know that anyone here expects that everyone's going to have every class rolled out, ready to go for day one. But are they even able to do? Are they going to be able to do one section, and who's providing that training?
Yeah, that's a good question, Mr. Scott, because that is a concern. I think you and I share, maybe we don't, but it sounds like that, even if it's one class, they gotta be ready to do that and do it at a normal proficient level. And I guess we need the assurances that that's gonna happen.
I mean, they're going to have, once they're comfortable with it, I think we've already discussed the wide benefits of teachers can start getting creative and bringing apps into play and getting interactive with the kids and having them search things out in the middle of the class and all that, which is all wonderful. However, that's the easy part, in my opinion. The hard part is actually the day-to-day, what am I going to do when the kids walk in the room and sit down, and I'm used to teaching out of a book, and now I'm using this, and they're going to have it in front of them. How are we interacting? How am I delivering the material to them? And
I
I
think Scott
think,
has to answer that question now, because at one point or another, I mean, I don't know the answer, but I can't imagine rolling something out and having had zero training at all on it, number one. Number two, when you get into the interactive piece of it, and then to your point where they're going to take the technology and interface it into the education, I think you have to get past the clicks. You know, it's like a phone. You know, I do things on my phone that most people can't do, because I'm just that guy. I go out and I get the tips and tricks and I read about them. So no matter what happens, you're going to have a different disparity of teacher usage.
well, and that's where the
as
teams
well.
come in, you have department
The teams
heads,
come
and they're
in.
gonna share best
You have to
practices.
get past the rollout first,
Right.
and again, I can't imagine us doing a rollout at all without no training.
Well, I think they've been doing training on the tools and technology, so, I mean, that's a little bit of a concern with different skill sets, but my bigger concern is getting it into the system, getting the training up and running with the classes.
Right, so-
I'm
so-
worried about it being delayed.
Well, we
have
have-
a significant investment here. I think-
Right, we have like 3 different components, right? We have A, make sure the teachers can use the technology.
Right.
B, make sure the kids can use the technology. And then C is how do you integrate the technology into actually now teaching, right?
Right, yes, and
So-
that's going to be an iterative process.
So I think the how do you use it falls under the Scott and Matt's realm of
Yep.
technology, right?
I'm just thinking,
yeah.
I don't know that a vice principal who's got experience with teaching is gonna,
Well,
one, be
it-
hired in
it-
time, and two, be able to facilitate all that for an entire staff.
It'll be a
I
special
think that's the
person.
point.
Yep, right, it's going to be a special
I
person.
mean, in
Support is
my-
one thing.
In my business, okay, there are a lot of, every year we have something new software, new product support we have to learn. And as a manager, you know, to Mrs. Faye's point, you know, I would get upset with an employee who went several months and didn't come and say, hey, I got a problem, I need some help with this, versus somebody, you know, out of the gate said, hey, you know, I'm struggling with this, I need some support. I'd rather them come to me and tell me they need they're having difficulty than me discovering they're not doing something right because they're not learning the program and didn't even ask for help.
And you have to
So I would
message
think-
that. You have to early message.
And that's, I think that's a message from the administration to say, it's okay if you're not 100% fit, ready to go with this, but you need to ask, you need to come and be proactive and ask for additional support. And then you don't have to wait for a pulse check for Halloween. Maybe you'll know by the beginning of October that we really need to have a consultant come in and work on these 3, 4, 5 things, who knows? Just a suggestion.
Sorry, I think it's also really important that we collectively keep our focus and be realistic in that focus. You know, it's not at all realistic to expect that every teacher on the first day of school next year is going to have their stuff fully online. That's just not realistic.
It's
And
fully
so-
online now.
I think to say that you want lessons and on that very first day of school, we want everybody doing, so I think that to expect that everybody's gonna walk in.
I would expect a lesson.
First
I
thing.
mean, why did
it's-
the teachers have iPads for a year if there wasn't gonna be any work done to create
But what does that
a
lesson look like? So I think we just have to be really realistic in what we expect from folks. I don't think you can expect on the first day of school that they've got their classroom set up in Blackboard and they're ready to go and maybe they figured out how to use Keynote and they figured out how to take their lecture and add some PowerPoint slides that kids can also have access to in the moment. I think we just have to be really realistic in what.
I guess what I'm expecting is that you, Rob, and Preston have sat down and have something plotted out that we're rolling, we're continuously going uphill here and adding more and more as
I'm
we go
good
on.
with continuously uphill, but I think we have to recognize that nobody's starting at the top of the hill. So to walk in on the first day and expect somebody to be at the top of the hill isn't fair either.
I don't think kids are going to have the iPads the first day. I plan to give them like day 2 or 3 to have a technology day and have them
The kids
explore
will be
that.
at the top of the hill soon.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh, absolutely.
I don't expect that, what you're saying, I agree with. I guess the concern that I am voicing is more towards, I want to make sure we have the necessary resources so this program is a success. My fear is that someone in an assistant principal role is not going to be able to be as helpful as if we actually had somebody other than that in a role. And I know we're not looking to bring in a new position or something, but it just seems to me, we should be over-prepared instead of hoping that this works out. And to me, this scenario with the assistant principals isn't an over-prepared, ready to, put our best foot forward and handle everything. To me, it's a stopgap that has the potential of not producing the results that we would like to see even by Christmas. So my concern is we just are not we don't have enough, I don't know the right term, but just to me, I'm worried that we're not putting enough people and effort behind this to make it a success. I could see this just one person. I think, as an assistant principal, I think you're stretching them because they're going to have assistant principal duties. I'm just concerned we're not giving it enough attention that it's going to need. That's what I'm trying to say. I don't know if that clarifies what you're hearing.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that you can't expect people here.
We are also looking at stipend positions for teachers. We're looking at internal supports first before we go outside. And I think if we want to get into this conversation deeper, we need to have the principals here because they're doing that. If I would have known, I would have had them here. So I know Preston and Jenny could answer much deeper because they're there on site with the training and we're not. But we're also looking at doing stipend positions for things like that. So we're not looking just for the assistant principals. We're looking at adding a lot of resources in, and that's another conversation as we get down the road.
Well, this is the major budget meeting prior to the vote, and this isn't, I don't want you to take this as, I'm not criticizing you because I don't believe it's on you, but this was our big meeting coming up to the 14th, and this is where I thought we were going to be able to ask a lot of questions and hash things out, and here we have, taking time missing the track meet here. By the way, our girls team set the new county record in the 4x100. And the right people aren't here to answer these questions, and we're going to be expected to then hash this out on the 14th and put forth the preliminary budget. I'm not sure why they're not here, but and again, it's not Mr. Harris' fault here, but we're going to leave this meeting probably with no answers because they're not here to answer. I mean, I think a lot of my questions with staffing, because that's where we're at, we're almost at 7 o'clock now, none of these questions are going to get answered. I know you're talking about stipends, that's going to be put in the budget, so we're going to talk about this on the 14th.
Teachers had these things for a year.
Yeah.
They've been working
Well, I'm
with
just
them for a
talking
year.
in general now.
I know, I'm saying, so the rollout in September is going to be the children. Okay, so we're talking about an additional spot for the teachers that, over the last year, has there been a need? I mean, have they come forward? Has anybody come forward and said, I don't understand this, I can't move forward?
I don't know what they've done.
I think
don't
that's a
know
true
either.
statement if you assume that in this year, they've been working towards a plan or a goal or a usage of the tool besides just learning how to use the tool. So if that's not the case, then, we have the summer and some,
I'm just
certain
saying, that
service
the rollout,
days
the rollout's
to-
to children. That's what we're talking about here. The rollout's to children now. So I agree that it's a possibility there's going to be a problem, but I don't know if we know what the problem is until we get into it. I worked for a company called Reynolds & Reynolds. We did the big information systems for 6 years. We did big rollouts, and there would be 800 people. And there was a lot of training ahead of time, and week 1 was horrible for them. And then, we go in in the second month, and it was horrible. Their first month end was terrible. I mean, nobody ever wanted to come up in December because they had to do a month end, a year end at the same time. So there's going to be challenges, but I think once you get past that first initial is when you can stand back and take a better look at it and go, what do we need now? Where are the level of usage at? And I think you can make a better, more informed decision at that point.
I think might be a little apples to oranges comparison there, because you're not rolling out a software package that's been developed and here, go ahead and use it. They have to develop a curriculum and figure out how they're going to use the tool in the classroom. That's something that they have to
And
do.
over the last year,
Well, they haven't been,
we don't know that. That's what I'm saying.
well, they've been learning how to use it, maybe doing research, but they haven't had it in the classroom. They have no experience.
They've had 2 days of training, not weeks, 2 days of training.
Pardon?
2 days of training.
For what?
That-
For what, just to use it, or?
They've had 2 days, 2 in-service days where they had professional training for the iPads. Now, some teachers took the course. There was a
There's a lot of equal ages.
Teaching with iPads course that several teachers utilize. So some teachers will be more prepared than others, the ones who took the course.
Where's this course available? What course are you talking
It
about?
was a graduate level course that was offered through BIU, Mr. Early? Tom McGee.
No, he owns a separate
It's the
company, and
University
Tom
of
McGee's the
Nevada.
guy we brought in, and he offered a graduate course, which several of our teachers are taking it. We're also offering a second course coming up at the end of June. He's preparing the pamphlet as we speak. This was actually, we've consulted with teachers who have had the gentleman before. He's an excellent trainer. He also works in the Northern Lebanon School District as their tech director there. And so we brought him in. We're going to have another summer, at least one other summer course. We're talking about the second one. The feedback I got in terms of I surveyed the staff that took the course itself was outstanding. It's very, very good in terms of the information that you, both the technology information, but also the lesson planning and things along those lines. And also to give you an idea, I mean, depending on the level of the teacher skills going in, what's available out there in terms of apps and other things that can help student learning. So it's been so far a success.
Ron, how many teachers have took it?
I'd say, and I have to look at the numbers, I'd say between 10 and 20, probably even 14 somewhere in there in that area. But I, to be honest with you, Dave, I have to look at that again to see the exact number that took the course. Again, we're offering a second one coming up here also.
When you say you're offering it, is that?
We're using our facilities to do it. When I say offering, we're using our facilities. We,
So it's
per
voluntary?
per our contractual agreement with DPEA, we reimburse a percentage of the teachers taking the course itself. And they're awarded graduate credits also, so there's an incentive there from a pay scale standpoint for them to take it. So it's a side thing. It doesn't train all of our staff. It trains some of our staff. It's another thing among several things we're trying to do to try to increase the skill set.
Well, I think what I'm hearing is, all right, if we have somebody who's proficient or more proficient, you're going to have those people in the general high school population. Maybe you have a vice principal who's very adept at using that, teaching in the classroom with an iPad. But I think what I'm hearing is we still would like to know that we have a backup plan, something to amplify that instruction so if we see that gap forming, that we can plug this person in and do some concentrated training to get that person back on track.
On a per need basis, right?
Sorry?
On a per need basis.
Yeah.
But then I don't want to get into the position in October, November, and maybe this doesn't happen, so we don't think worst case scenario, where we need to bring somebody in and we say, oh, well, that's not in the budget, because that's what's going to happen. And this is the time to think about that now, because we're going to set the budget. Are we going to have room in the budget if we need to do that? And if not, then we're just wasting our time, because that's going to be our answer if we need help come November, December.
Well, we can
whenever.
solve that right now. The question is, what do we have set aside for professional development? Does the board need to allocate additional funds to that need?
Kathleen, tell me if I'm wrong, but since we're doing some fills internal, we did have positions set aside in the budget, at least one more, correct? Didn't we have one outside of the assistant principal at Amity, I believe, the special ed one? Coach?
In fourth grade, you currently, we can run 10 sections of fourth grade based upon current enrollment. Now, originally, what was being discussed internally was that that person would then be the special education coach. Mr. Small had already budgeted for, what we could do is take that position, make that a technology coach, and leave in the budget what Mr. Small had for the special education coach that was already placed in the budget by the board.
So we did have a
I
spot.
don't know if I'm the only one that heard this, but in our last meeting, when we had that rather detailed conversation with Shelley about the need, it was not a coach, it was a teacher. It was another person handling cases as soon as possible. That's what I heard.
I agree.
So I
Well,
don't
from
know.
what I heard, Dr. C say was a coach who could
Teach.
teach if the, the level needed, right?
Yeah, I'm just,
You're right. That's
maybe, again, I don't want to be involved in that level of
I
detail. I'm
think
just
we wanted
saying
to make
that
sure we had our bases covered, that, we didn't get to October,
the problem we were
November
solving was caseload.
caseload.
That
But
was-
if we're not at that caseload, I think, I want to
Yeah,
paraphrase.
so that was the direct question that I asked this afternoon when we were talking, was today,
Yeah.
at 2:35, is the need the coach or is the need the classroom teacher. And the conversation was that the need at this point is a coach with the understanding, with that person understanding that should the class sizes come up to a place where the caseload becomes a concern.
Well, that's what I mean. I think my understanding was that the caseload is a concern now.
Oh, well, I can share only what was.
Yeah, I know, I'm just saying,
Yeah, so
I
that was.
don't know what's changed in a few weeks, but
Yeah, she did say, last time we discussed it, was very close to being at the maximum for the teachers if we were ever audited. So I don't know what that is, if we're, 4 students away from that level, or 14 students, I don't know the answer to that.
So
But-
quick question while we have our friendly neighborhood union representative here. So it's a 4th grade teacher, Rob, that we're putting into this coach. So, I mean, do they have is it basically we have an extra teacher, and is that the low seniority gets the, you can move or not, or how does,
will
what's?
they need to be special ed
I
certified?
mean, we have a special ed certified teacher, right? That
And that's,
you've identified.
these are all great questions that we can do here with that. To answer your question, we do have people in the district that are dual certified special education and elementary education, so that there can be some movement around that area. Also, to answer, depending on how we hire, as we hire, we can also seek out someone with a special ed certification. But in order to do anything with special ed, you gotta have a special ed cert.
So, I mean, does that mean that you're giving the option to the most senior person with special ed cert to move?
We can place any teacher,
Or you have
any
to-
teacher teach any subject we choose. The methodology there is certainly up for discussion. So
All right.
I think we want to do what's in the best interest of kids first and foremost.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Is there any, I hear the special ed, I think we need a teacher, that'd be my opinion. Is there anybody at the high school that, we could use to help out on the technology side, or?
I've heard that there are.
I've heard that there are, too. That's why I'm trying to be very, open about this question, but don't we have somebody that we
I
can?
wrote down the question, is there somebody that has some, through scheduling can free up, and I can get an
Yes,
answer? Or
that's
we can
fine.
get an answer.
Okay, thank you.
So this would be either a duty that they'd be assigned, or a stipend
Well,
that they would be
it would be
offered to do it.
paid
other-
stipend.
Or
Yeah.
instead of teaching, is there a person that is he running some short sessions of something that if you filled sessions, then you have, so sort of the same thing you're doing with special ed? Can you do sort of the same thing with the high school?
Council principal.
Or there's a
part-time.
teacher that's
Teach
not.
part-time support, yeah. So, because that coach position is still a teaching position. So, I wrote it down, I will talk to Preston tomorrow.
That would be best, I think, to have somebody in the building, that they could pull aside in the hallway at lunchtime, whatever, they could answer this question.
We would like that in all buildings. That's what we're looking at. An extra stipend position, not an extra person, but a teacher who's an expert, who becomes a guru in that area, who could become the go-to person in that building. But that's something we're working on, we're rolling out. We don't have all the details yet because training hasn't done and we haven't
A couple.
seen it. But we're sure some are going to pop up and say, hey, I got this, and that are good at working with their peers.
Is it fair to say, or a thought, that, I don't know exactly how you qualify it, but who's the head person in each department? Would that be a person that we would want to go through this training, for example? That way at least they don't have to go outside their area? I don't know, just thinking out loud here, but I would think by now the teachers at least learned how to operate the equipment. I think it's fair to say that the kids are going to pick up on it in 3 days if they don't bring their own personal one from home. It's the curriculum that we're talking about, I guess. But is it fair that I don't know if I can ask her or anybody, but at least the head person in each department, maybe they should be a point person, at least go through the training. I don't know. I'm just trying to.
I think it has to be somebody, I'm sorry.
I keep thinking I have to push this little button. I think Ideally, that makes sense, right? But I also think you want that person to be somebody who's really gung-ho and wants to do it too, and that might not be,
Okay.
I'm married to a department chair, that would not be his strength. He would do it if you told him you had to, but I think you want somebody who wants to be that person too.
So maybe in each department, they could pull a short straw or whatever and see, who is the person who wants to do it. I mean, that might be it. And the other thing is, and to her point, I'm obviously on the private side. I manage a country club, and what you were saying, I encourage my employees to come to me if they're having a problem. We did implement it, and I'm not going to get into the software, but we just brought in a whole new system at our club since January. But we have point people even at the company. Like, I can tell you, our guys are all in Pakistan, but we can reach out to these guys and ask specific questions, and we're learning as we go. I mean, does that come with this, maybe? Or, at least, I'm just going to say Amy, but maybe Amy has a question one night, and she can send the email, and our guy is Waqar. So you could just send a note to Waqar and say, Waqar, I got a stupid question here, but, and then Waqar gets right back to them. Again, I'm not trying to be, and again, we're talking curriculum, so I think the equipment should be, again, learned by now, hopefully.
The equipment isn't your curriculum, right? Your equipment,
Right, I got it.
your equipment is like your newfangled textbook. So we always say that textbooks and things like that are resources and they're tools. So now you've just added a resource and a tool to the conversation. So it's making sure that we're using it and we're using it well. And I think they're all good ideas. And I certainly can go have a conversation with Preston and see where we are and kind of get a summary of what he's thinking in regards to all of the questions, because I think they're good questions. And then as we write curriculum, you certainly would look to write activities that are easy to do or can be included technology-wise. So it's all kind of part of that process, and unfortunately, my magic wand is broken. I have one, but it's broken.
I think it's a little different too, that you're not giving someone a program that everybody has to use, and if you have a problem, you can call Pakistan, you don't know how to use this program. They're all different, little apps you're going to have to go out and get and build your own tool.
Is it possible for us to find out from the teachers over the last year how many and who took the time to create a lesson plan? To Jeff's point, that way you can get an accountability of what did we do with this time, what did we do with the tool, and it'll give you an opportunity to assess how much need you're going to have there for help, because that's what we're talking about, not curriculum so much, but a lesson plan. Did anybody take the time to build a lesson plan? I would think that would be an easy volunteer created a lesson plan. It would give you an idea of where we stand, wouldn't it?
We'll have to bring Preston and his crew in.
Yeah, I would also think that part of the rollout is going to be doing, when we do have the classes that are using technology to have observations in that class, speedier than maybe other things, so that we know that they are comfortable teaching them and then doing it the proper way. And then we can make some corrections if need be in that instance. Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure I heard an answer. Do we have ample funds in the budget for development training that we're talking about?
We have professional development within my budget, so it's there for our use as we need it in the school district, so we should be fine.
Do you feel it's enough? Based on what
If you don't feel willing to give it more, I'm always willing to take it, but I believe we'll be okay.
Don't we need to ask if we have money for additional resources if we need them, consultants or?
Well, it's,
Right.
it'll just come out of the general, it'll just come out, additional money above the budget for any item comes out of the general fund, so. Right.
It's not a building-based budget, because then you would notice that the schools' budgets start to shoot up, like band uniforms and certain things like that. So those are not put in the building budget, it's the general fund.
All good questions. Anything else on staff before we move forward?
Yes.
I guess, yeah, from the bear, all the questions. I think, we had briefly talked about some of the positions that were not quite full-time or 100%, whatever the breakdown that we're using is. status?
We had a discussion of that in the executive session for our last meeting, so we can discuss that later. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
Is that-
yes,
is
we're
that-
talking about.
Yeah, we
Is that
are talking about it.
session?
We are talking about it.
I'm not sure that's an executive.
Well,
I'm
it's
not-
part of
I'm not-
it's part of negotiations. So,
Well, staff, okay.
Yep.
But I get it, I deal with unions, okay? I have two of them I deal with. But I'm not quite sure.
we're actually working on an MOU
Okay,
to address that. So yes, it is part of the negotiations.
okay. That's my question. Thank you for taking the time.
Okay, since we're all here now, why don't we get into the preliminary budget, 5-year plan review? Do the overhead, so we can all take a look at presentation.
All you. So why did I sit here? I moved that.
In the meantime, is there any other public comment?
You gotta put your thingy down. Dave, you gotta put your thingy down.
I'm using my computer.
Okay.
Are you plugged in?
Is that thing plugged in?
Yeah, it's on. There it is. That looks like budget stuff. Whether it's
I can't
budget
even
stuff that's
see
in
it.
focus or not is an entirely different conversation. Hold on, there you go. Don't trust my eyes though. Is that good? Your computer's still in the way.
Rob, is there another half?
Hold on.
Keep your heads in the way.
Are you good?
I can see it from here.
There.
Better watch out, Sal. I got your phone here. I can send some.
Rob, how you doing? How was Big Watery? That was announced, that's in the minutes.
Oh, we have to explain your card.
No, I
Talk to Jim about it.
Let's have our glasses. Is this clear
I
yet?
came back and neither one of you were here and I had a little bit of cancer.
You got lots of people here to back it up.
That's that. You want me to back it up some more?
If you'd like to pull your chairs forward here to get a better look.
I can see perfectly from here.
If we back it up, it's not going to fit on the screen. That's it. It's as much as you get. No.
I'll jump in first. Kathleen, I told her this is her rodeo. This is her budget she'll be managing. But just briefly, as far as any adjustments on the revenue side for the 18-19 second column in, that assessment number is the latest from the assessment office and should be just about what our duplicate will look like on July 1. So that number has changed since the last time. And any other revenue numbers In the state area in particular, we're using what PDE has given us for both basic ed and special ed. We have received what our transportation subsidy was for this year. In the first column, that $1,505,510, so we know that number is as accurate as it can be. So from a revenue side, those are the only things that have really changed. Those are the only things that we can carve in stone. Kathleen has looked at the year end in an effort to make that fund balance as accurate as possible. And so that number is the best projection that we have, which of course drives out what happens in the 18-19 year. So I'll just let Kathleen take off and identify any items there that she wants to identify, and then we can get into the expense side and look at the adjustments there. Kathleen also has her PowerPoint. You have a hard copy in front of you, and I believe it's the last page. She has identified the primary changes that have been made since the March presentation. All right, go ahead, Kathleen.
Right, like Lauren said, the revenue is what it is based on what we got from the tax collection reports. Of course, it's going to stay the same. The state funding, that pretty much is based on what it's going to be. There might be some... I apologize. Forget about it. All right, like Lauren said, that the state revenue, they report on that every once in a while. You might get a slight adjustment, and that's going to be going all the way into next year anyway. But pretty much what they've said so far is where we're at. The assessment is the last report. Earned income, we went over. The federal funding is very easy. It's small dollars, and it usually remains the same. Where I focused a lot of my efforts, because a lot of that's just on the websites pulling from PDE, is with the expenses. And I don't know if it'd be easier for you guys to see this on the screen.
Kathleen, before you get to the expenses,
Sure.
on the revenue, for the earned income, we're assuming a 1% increase, is that correct?
Yes.
Is that typical, or is that somewhat conservative? Is there another number is there a range that we could look at?
That is somewhat conservative. There was, based on the report that the auditors brought forward to the Bureau, it appeared that it was higher, closer to 4%. But the reason for that was we're budgeting on a fiscal year basis, and they're reporting on a calendar year basis because that's the way our income tax is paid. And as a result, when you look at the 2 years that were, I believe they audit over a 2-year period, it's just the way the dollars fell between December and January. So I took those same numbers and put them into spreadsheets on a fiscal year basis as we were. And I could go to 1.4 perhaps,
Okay.
but not to go all the way to 4.
No, I wouldn't do that, but it just seems a little bit conservative. I mean, it has to be tied to the income growth, and I think in the economy we're seeing.
That's right. So, but even if I took it to 1.4, it's not a large number, but I could certainly tweak it upward. In fact, I had it on my screen this afternoon playing with various numbers. But in the grand scheme of things, it's not a big number. But that to answer the question that was posed that night, the next day I dug in and I did a 5-year study. Well, I went back as far as how long has the Bureau been in place with the new act? About that long. And I just simply took their audit report. I called them or emailed them and said, hey, I'm not agreeing with some of your numbers here, and I'm still not 100% certain that the numbers they had were accurate, but that's neither here nor there. I looked at the real numbers that we received and took them from a calendar year basis to a fiscal year basis, and the result was it is just a fraction higher than 1%.
You said you would be comfortable with 1.4?
no more than 1/4. That is not a big number.
Is
See
it-
it?
Well,
There it is right there.
1.4, not 0.4, right?
1.4.
1.4.
Yeah, right now, it's being multiplied with a 1% increase. So what Lauren's saying is instead of 1 would be 1.4%. I mean, that conversation my comment last time was used 2, but even adding 1%, it's really like $60,000 or something max. Yeah, it's not a very big revenue number.
No, I was reacting to the change in the spreadsheet. It'd be 1.014,
1.04.
1.014.
yes.
Oh,
0.14.
okay.
Yeah, I was adding the
So
wrong
you have
thing,
like-
sorry.
Yeah, it's a good percent.
I deleted it.
There you
Okay.
Still less than 2%, for 1.4%. I'm concerned with that. I mean, a lot of the guys are plugging in like 2% increases on expenses just because it's CPI. Actually, CPI is going to go higher this year.
I mean, we can
Yeah,
certainly
so
put
I
it, I mean,
think they went with 2%.
I mean, everybody has a copy of the spreadsheet, you can certainly put in 2% in yours. Which is what I did in mine. Again, it's a very negligible
Yeah,
effect on it, but I use 2% myself.
it's like $30,000.
Yeah. Are there any other questions on revenue? Revenue is pretty straightforward.
Where, I know we asked this before, but where are we at with the, is that power plant number in there, which number that we're assuming? Is that,
Not for 2021.
I have a scenario that I can forward out that I go out in the far column to the right in the 22-23 year, unless there's some difference, but that was the last year that I heard. And I added 14.5 million to the assessment that year and let it play out, but it's all the way out in 22-23. I can forward that off to you.
I think it comes in 21, 22.
It would be in the
I think the
21
KOZ
tax
is-
year.
I think the KOZ ends in December 31st, 2020. So,
So I'll
but it's a
back
year.
it off,
Yeah,
but
a
it's,
year.
it's out there 3 years at least.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions on the revenue? You sure? Now's the time.
Did any other municipalities give you stuff that's coming in that's going to impact their, because there is some stuff happening anyway that should change some assessments?
I have a question. I have a question about the spreadsheet. When I'm looking at it, I'm looking at, end funding balances and then over operational balances funds. In 2018-19, we go from 262,000 plus to 1.64 million negative.
That's the operational impact.
Okay.
So in the 17-18 year, we're projecting that we have an operational surplus of 262,000.
Correct.
Then you carry forward against your fund balance, so you're going to have an operational deficit currently of the 18-19 year of 1.6 million.
That's, every time we talk about a need, I look at that number and I go,
That's just simply
Yeah,
revenue over expense.
I need a new car, but I go to my bank account, maybe I don't have it, you know what I mean? So when I look at that stuff, that's what I've been looking at lately. Is that accurate? We're 1.6, that's it's significant. You cut it in half, it's $800,000. It's a lot of money to be upside down. Where's the money come from? Because I'm new at this. When we're upside down by 800,000, it's making $1 million. What happens?
Comes out of your fund balance that you have. But as you follow this across, you will see the impact on your ending fund balance as a result of your operational deficit or surplus.
Okay, so it keeps taking out, so following your fund balances in the negative situation.
Correct.
So it's made up in taxes, which nobody likes, but that's your revenue.
Right. The taxes are flat year over year after this for the situation that we're in.
Lauren, what's the, on the current, what's 1 basis point in millage equal in dollars? 600.
A mill is roughly $1 million.
A single,
1 mill
One mill.
is $1 million.
Yes.
We try and use the microphones for those that are totally.
Yeah, mill is equal to about $1 million.
yeah, if you go to 32,
Which is basically
$1 million.
the limit that you're going to expect after the next year.
yeah.
It's about 2%.
Okay. No other questions?
Can you go back up to where the millage is
Yes,
listed up there? So you have, that's for this year,
yes,
Yep.
because there was no determination made.
That brought up the
Well,
index.
it shouldn't reflect what we're talking about in the budget right now?
3.2%. What's that, Mr. Wolf?
Shouldn't it reflect the rate that we had in the preliminary budget we passed back in January, February?
That 31.1664 is the preliminary budget.
Yeah, 30, yeah.
30.2 this year times 3.2% increase to the index.
Yeah, so all our, newer members know, so current millage right now, it's 30.2, but if we pass, will allow us to increase it to 31.1664. However, we can go anywhere.
There's your difference.
Okay,
I
you hit that column.
I was
and
hiding
wait a
it,
minute,
I'm
there's
sorry,
no-
sorry,
Okay, I
sorry.
got it.
So, we can go anywhere from staying the same, or we could go up to that maximum or somewhere in between.
But the salary, but also in that formula is the salaries are flat too.
Right.
So
21,712 is Kathleen's year-end projection. And the 22.7 covers most of the adjustments that I'm aware of until we get all the replacement hirings and whatnot done.
So, I mean, as it stands now, and this is another decision that the board needs to make, right? Because we've had some conversations about potentially Lauren staying on for some special projects, which we need to figure out if, we owe it to Lauren to make a decision, yes or no, whether, we do want to keep him or not. So does the budget right now as far as salaries, as I know, as it was, you retired, Kathleen's taking over the CFO, we were not hiring a new business manager, is that correct?
Correct.
That's the way originally we had.
Well,
The dollars are
The
there.
dollars are there for the business manager position. Kathleen had brought forward a proposal for a restructuring of the business office, but we
Right.
left the business manager position.
So that position is in there if we wanted to use that money.
That's correct.
Correct.
Consulting dollars or keeping Lauren on, his dollars aren't.
Correct. Yeah, so like I said, we need the kinds of board we need to figure out, if we want to retain Lauren or not. We owe it to him, that he can put it in for his retirement and we can go into sunset, or we can have him hang around. And I had asked, both Jim and Lauren to come up with, if Lauren was to say what exactly would Lauren be doing, so. But I think that decision needs to be made sooner than later, so that Lauren can can figure that out too. So.
Would that need to be made on, that would need to be made on the 14th? Or do they need it, or do they need it sooner?
We actually, we have to post a budget 30 days before we adopt it. So that's why the magic of the 14th. We really don't have to do it until I think the 20th. However, between the time that we pass a preliminary budget for public view, we can make any changes, additions to the budget all the way up to June 30.
All right, I guess, I didn't know if what you're asking for, Mr. Rathband, or you're asking,
Well, I'm not asking for a decision tonight, but I want everybody to have in their minds, once we get this list from Jim, what, potentially Lauren will be doing. Because the way Peasers works, until you put it in your retirement and they process it, and it's not a fast process. So I think Mr. Small would like to know. We'd like to know whether he's he's wanted to stay, or whether he's going to seek retirement, and then move on to his next phase of what he plans to do. So, from a personal point of view, I think Mr. Small would like to know either way.
all right, so if Mr. Small indicates he's going to stay on a roll, we can make that motion. And so I anticipate we do that on the 14th.
Yeah, I mean, if with the board, we can so have a discussion, get his contract updated or extended. We can talk about clause in there that works for both sides. So we just have to get his contract extension on the agenda, and then we can vote.
We could put the rest of the idea and make the decision tonight, and then work out the details of what Ms. Haynes feels that she would need, what the board would like him to work on for special projects. At least because he has to make some decisions for his retirement side too. So
I think that's one of the reasons we another item on the agenda, the outside the box ideas. If that's something we're going to pursue, I don't know if that's something that Warren feels he'd have expertise in or not. So that's a potential possibility. I look at our transportation budget, and transportation is up, $700,000 in the past 2 years.
Aaron, that concept, you might be able to help us with your health care. Might be able to do something with health care.
I'm sure we can find something for you to do.
So, just so we can put some finality on it, I'd like to put forward a motion that we pursue having Mr. Small back on some retainer, or to on some method to amend the contract for him to aid the district as needed.
Second.
You said retainer.
Well, whatever you want to call it, just an agreement that we, if it's going to be a per diem, whatever the word you want to use, that you could he can be compensated for time, or whatever the schedule you would work, that would be acceptable to the administration.
Shouldn't we just kind of work it out and figure out at a high level what exactly the compensation would look like, and what body of work we want him to do, and then.
Yeah, I want to give Mr. Small some finality, because he has to make some decisions for his retirement.
Why don't we just take a straw poll here for the board? If we're all, is there anybody that would be opposed to Lauren staying on? Let's put it that way.
Does Lauren want to stay on in the
Right, that's really the question.
Yeah.
Talk, we can answer.
Yeah, Mr.
Okay.
Small.
We can stop talking.
Mr. Small, do you want to stay on? And I don't know if we could really take a straw poll.
Okay, Martin and I talk.
Well, so we can't really vote on it tonight, right? So because I think Mr. Scott and Mr. Supers and Mr. Small would need to iron out that contract, and then we can vote on the contract, right? So.
Or not?
But the question is, if he wants to.
Okay.
I mean, it's a
That's the
contract.
question.
Okay.
In my conversation with Mr. Small, and he was more than willing, with the understanding that nothing with Mrs. Haynes' situation changes. She's the top person for the financial side. that he'd be working, with her and with us, but she's giving the direction. So with that understanding, he was very comfortable with coming back.
Actually, Lauren would report to me. He would be basically auditing, investigating, and reviewing contracts, cost savings under transportation, and special projects. He would not report to Kathleen, he would report to me directly. We talked about a one-year agreement with a 90-day out clause. The 90-day would be that piece where he would have to get up and running. And once the contracts, that year is over, Lauren would be gone, or before that, everything, all the work was done. But that 90-day clause would be something that we would need to have in that one-year agreement, not the per diem or
Okay.
something else.
All right, but whatever the terminology is, I mean, the general idea is, to Mr. Rathke, I mean, do we have anyone opposed to not entertaining the idea of having Mr. Small come back?
Do we hear Tuesday? Never gone away. 2 years.
We'll give him July 1st off, and then he has to come back. Okay.
All right.
Well, I guess we gotta take the motion.
Well, we were just, that's a straw poll, that was what we just decided that.
Okay.
We're gonna have to vote on the actual, a contract has to be written up, by Mr. Subers and, Mr. Small, and it'll be something that we're going to vote on.
Okay.
But we're moving forward, everyone understands we're moving forward in that direction.
All right, because you and I made a motion.
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
we would
that's.
Okay. All right, does anybody else have any other questions on the revenue side?
Did we ever get a list of organizations other than religious that are on the property tax exempt, particularly the medical ones?
I asked Mary Ellen to capture it from the duplicates, it's contained within the duplicates. So, look at that.
When you get that, can we sit down and talk? I want to see that and then come up with some ideas.
I'll email it down.
All right, thank you. It's not a rush, so whenever you get it, thank you.
Because I emailed you that information on the medical thing that I got from the other district.
Yeah, you sent me.
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Durso, while you're on it, I've had a question in the back of my mind for a while now. Maybe it's still KOZ, I don't know, but all those properties along when you clear the bridge and the Main Street there on the right that I think Mr. Mascara owns and they're all seem to be rented and fixed up and whatnot. Are they taxed? Are their assessments been looked at? Or
They're taxed. They've been at the KOZ for a couple of years now.
are their assessments where they should be? Or?
Yeah, because it's mostly all storage. Nothing's changed to the buildings, any upgrades. The only other thing that changes on a regular basis, and I'm sure they have the numbers, would be the alert up for the shops at St. Mark's. I mean, it's not a significant increase, but I think we're near 3 of that, so we should be at about 60% of the assessed
It was
value.
in place 4 years ago when I arrived here. That was 4 years ago this week, so.
Yeah, year 1 would be 0, and then it's 20, 40. So we might be at 60% of assessed value. Again, it's not a huge increase, but it's probably 100,000 or something.
So Mr. Dorso had asked about Amity, there's new commercial development in Amity, have we seen any projections?
I don't think they provide any, do they?
No.
Do you want me to reach out to their manager and
Well,
see if he's got any ideas?
I can do that. Here again, Mary Ellen is going to contact the assessment office and see at what level they are with the assessment phase. But I know when I met with the assessor 2 years ago, they were in the midst of the pharmacy supermarket complex there in Birdsboro, and she was saying that it's minimal until fully closed, doors are on, lights are on, and all the rest. So,
The Dollar General said it's close to,
that's getting very close.
that's gonna
Well, it'll be a bump because you had land without anything on it, so it'll be a little bit of a bump, but it'd be good to see what they have. But obviously, we all know Wendy's is coming, so that's land that was just land, which is not even a building on it, so.
Didn't we approve some type of overlay district for those properties along for the 422 corridor on each side?
Would have been before my time.
Yeah, we had, Mr. Bigman came in, Mr. Bigman came in.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was taking any and all undeveloped parcels within Amity Township. Wasn't that the deal? I'll do that.
Yeah, that's
2 years ago.
That-
But I thought with that piece of legislation, didn't they have to come before us to say that they were?
I'll pull that diagram.
Anything else?
Okay, since now we're looking at the top, let's start drilling down into the detail of, start with the buildings, or where do you want to start?
Start right at the beginning, Amity.
Doesn't Amity actually boil down to that, those math books? Is that really what it is?
Yeah, the major expense you're looking at, and guys, and when I say this, I hope you'll take a start. This is a must. Our math series, the Go Math series, is it's consumable
I want to say books, yes, the new workbooks that they
consumable materials. That is in essence their textbook. We've been using this series for several years. So our teachers have gotten used to the series, but we have to replace it, or we won't be able to function next year. So the essence of the major line item, for example, in Dane's budget and in Melanie's budget, in terms of the 600s, has to do with that series itself. And it's also in Jenny's budget at the middle school because they also use it up until 7th grade partially. Not every kid in 7th grade gets that.
The middle school budget isn't that different. So, I mean, it's about 40,000.
It's real tight for middle school. She's fine there.
So, I mean, for Amity, the supplies are going up, 35,000. Is that pretty much most of that?
Yeah, you're seeing in his supplies, what you're seeing in Amity is the Go Math series. You're also seeing Great Books, which is an intervention that we already have that was used heavily at Birdsboro this year on their Dr. C. And he needs some more to fully implement that. So there's a little bit of that in there. So I think about $6,000 or so in there. And I believe there were also some supplies for science class, some lab supplies that were in there also. That he had in there. But the big line item is clearly the math textbooks that are consumable in this nature.
Was that gets us, what, 1 year?
No, and that actually, because as our previous budget meeting, one of the things I said to you is I needed to arm wrestle, for a lack of a better word, with the sales agent, and so I talked to the sales agent ad nauseum. And what we have now is we have a 3-year, what I believe is the best deal for the district. We have a 3-year deal here, and they have agreed in terms of, they give us free professional development, which is good. Not a lot, but they did give us some to go along with that for new teachers and things like that. And obviously, we have a 3-year deal for about $88,000, whereas a 1-year deal, we were looking at very close to that amount. I think we were about 58 or 59, somewhere in that range, for if we were just to go with 1 year. So clearly, this is the better deal. They've also offered some financing terms for us in terms of they'll allow us to pay that over a 2-year time period, so we're able to dig at those numbers a little further in cost. So that's kind of where we're at with it right now. I believe we have a fair deal given the amount of limited leverage we have. They're fully aware.
What weren't we were going to get rid of? We were going to get rid of Go Math. We're only going to hang on to it here.
We're not getting rid of Go Math. We were looking at that. We wanted to give Dr. C time to implement that, but the cost of 1 year versus the cost of 3 years is just, it's almost silly not to do it. The Go Math series is Common Core, Pennsylvania Core line, so it is I mean, and it is a national publisher. And there is also, I need to say this, anytime you change a series, it creates a substantial disruption among our teaching staff. There needs to be professional development. Our teachers are finally getting used to that. So we need to go slow before, I think 3 years. I could have gone out 5 years with this. I think 3
Yeah,
years.
I thought there was a problem with going back and we didn't like it, and then.
I think we're working and we're getting better. I think being honest with you, I think it was more around getting used to the Common Core and the rigors of the Common Core and the associated teaching strategies that go with it. It takes time and effort as you gradually implement those types of things. I think Go Math was sometimes whatever series when it came in with the Common Core would have been the target of that, and regardless of it. It is a national company, so it is aligned to the core standards.
So Art, did we then break this budget down into a 2-year payment?
Yes.
We did break it into a 2-year payment on that.
Mr. Scott, so your hand raised, is that?
So the textbooks are in line, they're in the 600,
Yes.
right? What's the 300?
That's professional services that can range anything from BCIU, bringing a teacher in, anything along those lines, or bringing outside, like a
Do we know what the big uptick's been? Like we had 4 years of, 4-digit
coding.
numbers, and then that's coding.
Those numbers were in, I think, Rob's budget before, correct? Is that what
They
you-
were all in,
central-
like,
central
they were, it's in a central area. What we've done this year, Mr. Harris said that we want to, when we're teaching the budget, we want to show what the budget looks like per building. What would happen if we took that building offline, those costs that are directly related? If I've got a professional service that is related to high school, but I can't pin it on a building, that's where that last slide is, where I have the vocational and the BCTC and whatever. But in this manner, these are expenses directly that are from students that are in that building.
And that shift up in
Is
last
coding.
year
That
is
was mostly coding because it was all in 0000. And you never saw it when it was in 000.
Actually, I think you look at Rob's budget, I think your budget came down, didn't it?
In some areas, he did cut 90,000 in his textbook because of the one-to-one initiative. Also, and just before I forget, in the 600 I found just before we came here, must be an extra zero added to one of his numbers. I'll be cutting 10,000 in that 600.
Yeah, so it's more of the costs were under different areas last year, Jeff, as opposed to being, and when you started making that change last year or this year?
I've been working on it since I started, so it's been about 2 years. There's different sections I was working on as I was getting through. First, making sure that it matched PDE's requirements for the chart of accounts. There was also, from a reporting standpoint, and I explained this to Rob, because all the shifting in the budget, that it's a little confusing to some of the teachers and the administrators wondering where all the money is sitting. I understand that. But when we're reporting things for AFR, I need to know which portion of that is elementary, which portion of that is secondary, and if we're coding everything to 0000, it's not getting in the correct line items, which then in turn affects different things like funding, tuition rates, and everything like that.
So overall, this is really going to help us, I think, drill down better and see where our expenses really are going.
And if we get that new computer system, it's going to be wonderful.
So,
Didn't we tell you we're cutting that out?
Oh, no.
I heard you say that 76 is
It's
inflated
going
by
to be,
10,000.
it's inflated by 10,000.
So the net increase for the building over last year was 33,000 roughly. And most, the lion's share from Mr. Hurley, the lion's share of that increase is the textbooks.
Yes. That is the 6,000 was the grade books, and then the additional funds for the Go Math, the good contract.
Thank you. And note, maybe next year, if we get this, that could come with that sheet saying, hey, here's what the increase was. We wouldn't have to be, going around in circles spending an extra hour trying to figure it out. And all of us, board members going, so.
And we have spreadsheets that we can actually drill down into.
Okay. Now on to Monocacy.
Well, I have a question on one thing.
Yeah, sure.
Rob, I'm just asking you a question maybe, but so we're getting these iPads
It's only for the high school.
Oh, yeah,
That's a class, but I need to work on this.
When the officer principal, it looks like
I- I-
a decrease
yeah.
your supplies, when it shows
Okay,
positive
okay, fair enough.
4150.
I just thought we're not gonna do it.
Went from 8,200 to 2,350.
We don't know if it looks like
Oh,
an
look at
increase.
that. That was a nice catch. Sorry about that.
Where are you at, middle school?
This is the manual system that I use with CSIU. I'm in there individually changing that.
Right.
And that was one of my oversights. In total, it is correct, because I have to total down each section. But, and the in and out at the bottom, I know that's accurate. That was one line item I forgot to change. But with this won't happen with the new software. Another plug.
I think she made a mistake on purpose to
I was
try
trying
and
to help, I wasn't trying to pick out a bad thing, I just said,
When we get to that line item in the budget, we already know where she stands on that.
oh, I know how this is. The new software will do all that for you.
It does it. The drop into Excel, I don't have to do it. This is a nightmare.
All right, let's move on.
Okay. All right, Monocacy. So up in the supply line, like on the last page, we took out 21,120. There was some tech supplies in there that we weren't sure how they got there. But when we drilled down to it, it wasn't necessary because it was in technology's budget. And then the other is the Go Math to the rates that we had just gotten.
Same story as with
Yeah,
ASB.
hold on one second, if I can add some color to
Yeah, go
that
right ahead.
for Monocacy also. Keep in mind, Monocacy's enrollment next, the overall enrollment, because the grade reconfiguration, second grade going in, their enrollment actually increases. So she does need to increase her supplies, either for Tuesday folders, paper copying, associated special areas, materials. So those things are also incorporated in there because of when her overall enrollment as a result of the grade reconfiguration, i.e. 4 teachers coming from Amity to Monocacy, she has to account for that in that particular thing, and those students there.
Now, I'm glad you kind of segued into a question I had. Now, obviously, there's a lot of inventory over at Birdsboro that will be excess after this year. Do we have, I probably know the answer, we haven't inventoried enough to see what's there and what could be sent over to Monocacy or otherwise to help offset some of these costs?
So there is a lot at Birdsboro, and Jolene is working diligently to get it into some sort of order that makes any sense. Yesterday, I left her and she was sitting literally in a pile of 300 scissors, they were just dumped in a box. So she had piles of lefty scissors with points and lefty scissors without points. So we have enough lefty scissors in Birdsboro for every left-handed kid in Pennsylvania probably. We can sell them on eBay. But there are some supplies there. Jolene is working hard, but we've also shared all year. So when folks have said we're short pencils, we've sent them from Birdsboro. So there are some things that there's a plethora of at Birdsboro, and then there are some things that we actually have used this year as folks have
Do you have enough abacus now to supply to the
honestly not have an abacus, but
We probably have more overhead projectors that we could.
bulbs
Bulbs.
for overhead projectors, but no actual overhead.
Along the same lines, for example, without going into the specific buildings budget, but one of the principals' budget, they had an order in there for tables, and it wasn't for like a huge amount of money, but we know we had tables over there in Birdsboro, we're like, nah, that's
So
not
we
gonna
cut
happen.
it
So
out.
we knocked that out there. So that's the kind of thing that we look for when we try to find.
And then Mr. Strummel had asked me personally about, what happens to all that excess material over there at some point. And I know Casey had Casey had, I think during facilities, you had talked about at some point, going through and maybe selling, but there's a process that everybody has to get to go through and everything else.
True. First, we want to make the, Mr. Small, you correct me if I'm wrong. We have a lot of inventory hidden in spaces and basements and everything, and quite honestly, I don't think anybody in the district really knows what's there. So the point was to kind of bring it to the light, see if there's things that other buildings may need that could be of value. And following that, we would bring a an auctioneer in to look at it on a building by building case and see if it's even worth having any type of public auction, and then after that, it's, yeah, you have to dispose of it some other way.
Mr. Scott?
Yes, the question on the professional services,
Yes.
so the 62,000 with 150 less kids than Amity, and there's 20,000 more than Amity.
MEC, I mean, this is Monocacy, and it's going up because the students, the enrollment is going up, but it's just divided amongst the students. When I have a BCIU bill, when I'm looking at exactly, if I can't even pin the students, but I know that it's between MEC or AC, I divide it between the two according to the student
Let's
base.
just say it's going up 100 kids, but the cost is almost doubling, and it's 20,000 more than Amity, which has 150 more kids. So if it's a
I can
kid-
look at
if it's a
reducing
kid
the
thing,
number,
it
I'll
seems
look at
odd.
it again, just to make sure, but I went through those numbers the last time we were here, but I'll definitely go back through it again and make sure that it's an accurate number.
Is it, can we, do you adjust that by, on a per kid basis? Is that kind of how you?
Based on what the services are this year and what they're looking at, and the rate changes and everything like that, I go through the whole calculation and try to figure out.
Maybe it might benefit some of the programs. I mean, the IE provides a lot of services to us, maybe, so it's kind of maybe list them so that.
The IU sometimes provides some special services for kids with extraordinary needs, and so the
That's
costs
part
can
of it.
vary
It's gotta follow the
depending on the students and where the student's at. Now, I'm not an accountant, but I'm guessing that's where that's accounted into.
That's what's happening, is when the students transfer into different buildings, that the cost is gonna come with them. But again, I will definitely look and I'll fine tune those numbers. I was gonna fine tune charter because the 339, that whole PD 339 on charter schools, we have to go back and redo that whole dollar amount, so I might be adjusting the budget a little bit for charter schools as well.
Any more Monocacy? Move to middle school?
Middle school was just to go with the Go Math. We didn't feel that she had enough money in there, so we added 8,000 for the Go Math. And that's the only change to that. But it's a strong budget, there's no major increase. Okay?
And I know the high school change was negligible.
Yeah, there was
So-
nothing I even
Unless
touched
somebody
there.
has questions about the high school.
And facilities, there were no changes to the facilities since the last time we were here.
There are no changes, but there's still pretty big variances, especially on property services. Do we have the breakout for property services?
Property services would include the GCA, Halter Landscaping for any of the snow removal.
So we're increasing the budget by $348,000 year over
It's
year.
based on the contract and what we received this year.
Is that that would be assuming that they would be fully staffed all the time and whatever we're
Exactly.
monthly
I
paying
have
should.
to do
Okay.
it completely to the fullest.
So because they weren't properly staffed this whole year, to my understanding, I mean, this number for this current budget may be deflated simply because they were not staffed
Are
properly.
these, the 17, 18, these are pro forma numbers?
Budget,
Yeah, their budget, that's what we budgeted last year.
just the budget. It's just the budget numbers.
So that
It's
budget
not-
number would assume full staffing.
Right, sure.
That's, if it's pro forma, then yeah, but
So that's-
if it's budget, then that's what we assume that it's full staff. So that increase seems,
And that budget right there, the budget is actually, I put in there, I didn't put the budget that we budgeted and approved. It's the budget that I've had to do all the transfers throughout the year. So it's as close to actual based on our PO system and what we encumber.
actual as in what we actually spent, or actual as in what the actual budget would have been if we had everything accounted for properly?
No, actual as to what we actually spent. It's close. I know there's some
Well, no,
overages.
so, all right, so that's not a budget number, that's a spend number.
It's close, it depends on, there's some overages in different areas that I haven't gotten to actually make sure the budget transfers are done. But that's pretty close.
So
So it's
is
roughly
the
two-
difference then, the lack
Of
of
the
staff?
348, yeah.
Like, do we know that?
It's 204,000, roughly $205,000
Yes.
difference.
I've had to adjust that budget all year long.
So half of it's the staffing, right?
The last 2 months, I'm trying to think, the last invoice I paid was for March. So February and March, they were pretty close to where they should be hours-wise. First 6 months of the year, no. That was similar to last year when I reduced them by 112,000, 120,000 against contract. So they have been providing the hours on paper per the contract the last.
Yeah,
Haven't seen the
if
results.
that's the answer, that's the answer. It's a big number, right?
Well, I said, the hours on paper.
Can I ask a historical question on that line item? Going back a few years, there was a major jump in 15, 16. Outsourcing one.
We outsourced, the GCA's come in a couple years ago. It was all in.
Right, the major jump happened in 16, 17. We went from under $1 million to now over $2 million. Do we know what caused that major jump?
The property you're talking about, the 500.
Property services, yeah.
This right here is when we had facilities in-house in case we had people here staff.
Okay,
So
so,
that's up in your 200s, 100s, and 200s.
gotcha, okay.
Their personnel, our personnel, and
They would have
now.
been, the staffing would have been somewhere else.
It's spread out throughout the budget, okay,
Yeah.
thank you, okay.
Yeah, so that's, I mean, just forget about looking at facilities, if you combine all the, facilities and a couple of these other ones, if you look at the 5-year budget, from, on expenses, purchase services, purchase property services, other purchase services, supplies, property, that's in excess of $1 million increase from this budget to the next budget. That's, I'm looking at the budget, I'm like, how are we up $1 million between all these categories? So that's, where I'm having an issue with our.
Why wouldn't supplies also trend down when we went to GCA? Because didn't that, most of that would be included in some of their costs?
We continue to purchase the supplies.
Yeah, we still have to purchase,
Not the custodial.
not the custodial, but from the supplies, meaning the bolts, the things that we need to purchase.
I mean,
The maintenance day-to-day stuff like, motors and light bulbs
Compressors
and
and
all
all
that.
That goes through there.
Custodial supplies belong to the county.
Right, but the other stuff still has to be purchased.
So, okay, so what's the increase in the supplies from last year to this year to next year? It's about 75,000.
That's a Casey question. I'm gonna have to ask him. I'll send him an email.
I remember him saying something about that compressors, I think he worked on that,
That I don't remember,
motors and compressors, wasn't it?
because he was here the last time.
Well, he was talking about the air conditioning units where there was a bunch of them that were needing replacement. I don't know if that's,
Wait, should that be going into capital improvement?
well, unless it's broken and it doesn't allow us to heat the building or cool the building,
If it's maintenance.
then it's a must.
It wouldn't,
Maintenance doesn't go in capital.
wouldn't these lighting projects that we approved just last month to change out the lighting for Monocacy and, Amity and
Some of that goes to capital because it's attached to the infrastructure.
But other stuff goes through supplies.
Okay. Then can you note, ask us that question, just generally speaking, what's that 70?
Yeah, see, I don't remember what he said. He was here the last time and I just don't remember. But I'll definitely,
So I guess another concern, once we have these numbers baked in, we're not sure where they're coming from, and then we're increasing them by 2% overall for each year. So we're just adding on to it.
any other questions? Yes, sir. Now, transportation, we added the 88,000, and then they had the new fuel bid come through with the dollar amount, so we estimated about $35,000 increase in the fuel. And that's all in the 500 course.
So the 88,000 is for the one bus?
2 buses.
We buy the buses?
No.
We only added one, I thought.
We added one this year,
It
but
costs
one
more
for
than that
next
rate
year.
for a bus.
Yeah, we added one for the remainder of this year, but did we already approve for 2 buses next year?
Well, it carries into next year.
Yeah.
When you approved the 2 buses, we just asked if we could bring it on early.
We
There are
brought
2
one
buses.
bus on early
Just one bus.
this year.
But you approved 2 buses for next year and asked, then they come back and ask for one bus, one of those buses this year for the remainder of the year.
Yeah, I thought we approved one bus for the remainder of this year to alleviate that issue.
Right, one for the remainder of this year, but then it becomes 2. in the fleet
So
next
that's the part I don't remember. I don't remember it becomes 2 part. I remember that being in the discussion, but I don't remember us agreeing to that.
That night,
Yeah, approved 2 buses.
when I set out the 5-year plan, I had voted about 2 new buses, special ed position, and $4,000 for cheerleader shorts.
Well, I guess my question is, I thought we needed, well, 2 questions really. I thought we only approved one bus, but if we're adding another one, the second one, how is that? Because I remember Jeff being here saying adding that one bus affected like 10 other buses in a positive way, reduce their numbers. So, I guess I don't know.
Well, I guess I have 2 questions. So my first question is, so if Birdsboro is offline next year, is there any bus savings there as far as?
That was going to be my second question.
And when we discussed it today, what that does is that it just eliminates dropping there, but there were also those same buses that were Birdsboro used for the high school and the middle school runs. Now it just makes the
So it's
capacity
just
on the
taking the
buses.
time, this is reducing the time then, but.
It's reducing the times and how many people are actually on those buses.
But your contract calls for a daily rate, so if the bus does 1 run or 3.
We want to
Daily
maximize
rate.
that. Yeah.
Right, we'll maximize that. But then the other question comes up, the idea was supposed about changing the school time, right? So this might be the time to talk about that, right?
Well, I guess we
Is
could.
Jeff in these numbers? Jeff's not in these numbers.
Not in 300 to 999. When you look at it, this view right here, you're only looking from 300 to 999.
This is just the
On
transportation
his
cost.
spreadsheet, he has 100, 200 at the top in the expenditures. So in total, you're seeing everything. But in this right here, this is just showing you the operations side, not the salary and benefit side.
Right. So just not in this 500.
No.
No.
500 is the actual contract plus the fuel.
Can I ask a question?
Speaking,
I was under the impression with enrollment going down and consolidating, getting rid of the school, that our transportation costs were going to go down, which is an argument I made against prior. And I was assured that these costs were going to go down, and it seems like they've gone up significantly, but enrollment's going down.
The one bus was added for the middle school because we had, significant overcrowding in some of the buses. And
I'm not disputing that, I'm just saying,
So
we were sold that we would save money on transportation, and that is not the case. I'm just pointing that out.
This number actually includes, there's like about a 3% increase in the contract.
The contract
Year to
calls
year.
out a 3.3% increase a year on the daily rate.
Right, if we would have right-sized the number of buses a couple of years ago, then it would look like a decrease. But that's not the case. We're adding buses to alleviate a problem we've discovered in the last.
Yeah, but I think what he's getting at is that 16 to 17 to this year, there was a huge jump.
Well, gasoline also went, diesel fuel also went from like $3.40 a gallon to, or $2.40 a gallon to over what,
Gas
$3.90
was
each.
cheaper this year than it was last.
The bid just came back and
It's way up.
they were dollars, isn't it?
It's over $4. Yeah, that's our moving forward for the 17-18, right?
No, that was the old,
And I guess the software, are we sure we have the routes optimized for the?
I did actually go back over that with him to make sure to see if there was additional training or something we needed to make sure that he was routing and he felt comfortable enough with the program. I'm confident enough to tell you that yes, I do believe that he is routing correctly. There is a concern, like there was, do we want kids to be on the bus an hour and a half? Do we want them to be on an hour? I think there needs to be some set parameters, which would be very helpful.
I spoke to Jeff the other day, and we're looking at an average time of 1 hour. Okay, so and anything over 1 hour would be an extreme that we could adjust. And we have kids on bus 6 minutes. We're not going to not transport them. So we're looking at 1 hour as the average. We also looked at the scheduling of students, kindergartners, AM and PM at Monocacy, scheduling the AM from an area and then the PM. So the buses are traveling in an area together. So hopefully that should alleviate some of the ride time also. So the buses hit an area in the AM that's on one side of 422, and then the PM they're on the other side of 422. That's what he suggested also for efficiency. Instead of having buses go back and forth. So we will look at, if you're on one side of 10, you're PM, and the other side you're an AM.
and they're still the same price though, right? I mean, per trip, right? Per day.
But that should also help eliminate some of the ride time for the bus going back and forth. There is one question about fuel.
Well, all right, I think I got the answer, but I just was wondering why we're paying for the fuel. Just seems like a pretty, with all these big numbers, but he just explained that I guess it's.
Yeah, we buy it through the IU, and they block bid it out to, you know, all the district's needs, and so we get they're able to buy it and get a much lower price. There's more than that, I think.
I mean, if your question is, are the tanks over at the bus terminals, and are we actually getting the right amount? That's a question, I guess, right? But
Yeah, that's the other question, yeah. I mean, these buses are not,
Diesel vehicles.
but these buses aren't necessarily only being used for us, right? So some of that fuel is going towards the rentals and stuff, is that what you were just saying?
I mean,
There's a clause in the contract that speaks to how, if they use those vehicles that they use for us, how it's supposed to
it's just being honest.
Yeah, right.
So,
On paper, yeah.
I even see that when you're looking at the mileage and you're looking at the gas, like I do the fuel reimbursement for the other side of it, the vans and everything like that. If I see a substantial increase in those receipts that are coming through, we see that. You can see if there's something that's jumping off the page at you. There is a reconciliation, there is an audit per se on that, just to make sure that people aren't, I mean, could they scam $5 from me? Probably, but in the long run, you're looking at it like we look at it.
One thing I would ask for transportation for like the sports for all the teams that when they travel, are their busing expenses there or are they recorded somewhere else for all the extracurricular?
I have it all in here.
So it's everything's in there.
That's everything.
So whether it's the music
it's not
department,
athletics,
I did not put it in athletics because
All transportation.
all transportation based on the contract.
Okay. So could we go back to the middle school again? Let's see, I want to break through this idea, so.
Well, and right now, this is very much in the brainstorming phase, and if we were going to do this, this would not be something we would do immediately. It would need to be something we would need to vet, because we would need to notify parents. You want to give about a year and a half notice or a year notice to parents to let them know, to let staff know. Not to mention there's some other contractual issues.
Spit it out.
Okay, got it. There's a lot of caveats here. This is a brainstorming idea. Potentially,
Start with the footnotes.
The lawyer was the.
Oh, absolutely. Because the question is, do we want to bring more resources to bear on this idea? If you change your start times to 3 different start times, and you can propose those start times where you want to, the essence of our busing contract is that we are paying $44,000 a bus plus mileage. Potentially, we could eliminate some bus runs by doing that, and this is potentially, there's substantial savings there in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. Because the trick would be, can you lower the number of bus runs by doing that? And I believe on preliminary analysis, we can, okay? I would like to bring more expertise and people who have expertise in area transportation in on that. But I think it's an idea worth considering as well. There was any ideas that we have in regards to driving transportation costs down, because keep in mind, those costs don't affect academic achievement in any way, shape, or form. Staff does, textbooks do, other things along those lines. So this is a way we may be able to save some money without impacting our academics.
Any other districts?
To my knowledge, the idea Boston School District proposed this years ago, there was some community backlash against it. I don't know if it ever went through or not, but the Boston School District did propose something like this because they had a similar type of contractual language here.
Well, this is not, having staggered start times is not completely, many districts do. I mean, we have staggered start times. It's just a matter of how staggered you want them to be.
Whether you would have 3 or not, we did eliminate bus runs. That's what you.
So what you're saying, high school would be the earliest, then middle school, then elementary, is that what you're saying?
And that part we have to flesh out. But here's the academic part of this too. When you look at the research on academics, so we'd have to decide on that. We also have to take into consideration sports, which play into that, and that does play into the high school and middle level. So we have to be able to make sure that we can pull it off from that standpoint. We do have to look at it from the contractor standpoint, in that we don't want to bankrupt them either. I mean, we don't want to put them out of business by doing this, but they're not our primary concern here. But we at least need to be cognizant of those particular issues as we kind of drill down into this. But potentially down the road, this could be an idea of savings. I mean, on preliminary calculations, I mean, I came up with 5 bus runs, but that, again, I'm not a busing or transportation person, so.
That's a great idea. We're paying for the bus today. Would we change the contract?
Right.
I mean, for right now, like, do we want to devote more resources and time into an idea of this nature? Because again, I would not do this without bringing it out to the community, because the parents' schedules, teacher schedules, because if we started in our elementary at one time, our middle at another time, and our high school at another time, obviously that would be changes to lifestyles and people.
I mean, I guarantee you we'll get some pushback.
Absolutely.
I mean, we're not talking, I mean, what's the change? I mean, we're
Yeah.
not talking 2 hours. I mean, it's
Half hour?
half an hour, 40 minutes?
You're going to have some, right? You might have one kid who watches another kid because the kid on the bus, and now that's always
No, I
some
know there's
pushback,
some,
right?
But I mean, the bulk, I mean, you're never, no matter what you do, you're not.
Oh, correct. I'm just saying, there will be some pushback, right? So.
We did a survey 2 years ago when I got here about staggering the time at the high school. We start so early at the high school, we have that gap time in between where the kids are kind of on their own, they go home or have to get right back for athletics. We would not interfere if we started about 20 minutes to a half hour later at the high school, because we have that flexible time. And we did the survey, I still have the results, me and Scott did, we sent it out, it was online, and it was positive to start later. And we talked about psychological, looking at older kids, they like to stay in bed a little longer, but most felt they would still be late to school anyway, they would sleep later.
Well, I think Mr. Small's list is getting bigger.
Well, would we like the administration to follow through and at least further investigate it? Is there anyone opposed to not investigating?
I guess the question is, so who's going to do it? Is it, in all seriousness, is it Mr. Small? Does he have the qualifications to do that? Or if it's not, then who do we bring in to do that, and what's going to be the cost, right? Because I don't think our current administration, as they stand now, would have the time necessarily to, maybe not, you might have expertise, but as you say, you're not a transportation person. Do we have that person, A, on staff that could do it, and B, does that person have time to do it, right? So.
The transportation system we have can run various scenarios at various times. We've already done the survey to the public. We could send it out again and make it more recent. I think Mr. Small would be excellent to oversee this and a few other projects, being special assistant to the superintendent.
I would think that the bus company would be
They don't have any reason.
You don't ask
It's no
them.
advantage for them.
Yeah, you don't want to ask them.
But what could happen is if we do have 5 extra buses, we look at overcrowding. Those 5 extra buses might be absorbed to ease some of the overcrowding. That's something we have to look at also. Especially at the middle school and elementary, each teacher a seat. Also removing some of the 3rd graders who seem to have issues with the 1st graders at Monocacy. We have a number of those concerns. So that may be the result of changing these start times, not just getting rid of 5 buses, but having less students on the bus and splitting up our littlest ones with some of our little bigger ones. But once again, I think Mr. Smalls would be a very excellent person to handle this special project.
So we can't really put a cost number on that to say, do a study at X amount of dollars until we know what Mr. Smalls is doing.
It's in the system.
I mean, it is now.
But I mean, it's not going to cost.
Well, I'm just making sure, because every time you do a study, it seems to
I
cost
thought it was
money.
just part of the transportation.
No, I'm saying the transportation system we have can run various scenarios.
Using the software, Mr. Small.
Right, so then what I'm hearing is there'll be no added expenses to this study.
That's what I'm hearing.
So if we see it, then we can say, hey, you added expenses when you said you did. That's my concern, is I don't mind doing a study, but I don't want to add the expenses.
It sounds like we want in-house
Right.
services.
Perfect.
Yeah, Scott and I did the survey a couple of years ago. We got the results. We could redo it and send it out again. That didn't cost anything. And then right now we have transportation routing in-house, which we didn't have before. That doesn't cost us anything, just some time.
And I know there's some irony, because that costs us money with the BEC study, so I know a little hypocrisy there.
Something, Scott? No. Yeah, you're good? I'll raise my
Okay.
hand.
Any other questions on transportation? Okay, there's technology. Technology, I reduced
Was
100.
there a second bus in there? No, I'm sorry, I went to write
Sorry?
that, write it down.
Both buses are in there,
The second bus is in there.
yes.
And it was needed.
I still thought we approved one bus, but
I think it's one bus
For this
this year, but next year it's
For the remainder of this year, and then,
Yeah, it was 2 buses for next year, and I think 1 early this year.
that's what I recall. Is that not what you recall?
That's what I recall, but I have to say, if we're getting about 1, why do we need 2 next year, right? So, but I recall the 2, but then, you know, it was, can I get
Jeff said
one
one
more?
bus would really help right now. We said, okay, add that one bus right now.
Yeah, I think the beginning of
I
the
don't
conversation
remember
was-
anything about,
the
okay,
recommendation-
next year we're adding even another bus.
They wanted 6, and we said, how about 2? And they said, oh, how about 1 this year?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, it wasn't his request, it was the bus company's suggestion.
They need some more buildings.
So we save no money on the bus.
Anyway.
So that's the bulk of the $245,000 increase, huh, the 2 buses.
Can we take a bus out? Okay. I mean, did one bus eliminate all the feedback and all the talk? Because no?
There's different talks. There's overcrowding, and then there's combining certain riders on
What was
various buses.
behavioral? Bulk of it was,
Yes.
and that was attributed to, largely to the overcrowding,
And the longer
right?
route
And
times.
the longer route time.
Well, the realignment will take care of the behavior problem.
Yeah, I'm just curious, to those behavioral issues, what grade will they be in next year? Do we know what grade they were in?
We said 3rd to 1st.
I do know that, because you said 3rd.
Okay, 4th.
Right.
Well, we're talking about the middle school, right? We added buses to the middle school because there were issues, right?
I think it was overcrowding 3
Yeah, it
years.
was
ago.
Right, but there was also issues with behavior in addition to the overcrowding, right?
He said MEC.
Yeah.
He split one of the buses between the AEC and the MEC to separate the riders. The age.
But I can also tell you that we get more calls from the first grade, second grade parents. Middle school, they seem to handle it themselves in-house. They take care of their bus issues a lot. And when things get really big, they let us know. They work with Jeff. The parents reach out a lot more. And they're more excited with the 5 to 6 year olds on the bus when the third graders are picking
Well,
up.
I mean, then I would go back to, I mean, I don't see how, I mean, I get it, 3 kids in the seat in middle school, it's getting tight.
It's outrageous.
But 3 kids in elementary, you should be able to fit 3 kids in the seat in elementary. If it's behavioral, then maybe we've had this information before, maybe you go back to having some kind of bus aid on those buses that are having issues instead of spending, $88,000 for another bus.
Yeah, we discussed that, Beverly isn't here to weigh in on it, but, one thing that we had asked is that the administrators actually clamp down more on, if you have clients and roads are saying you have the same kids acting out, same kids are the problem for the most part, but yet every day they're still on the bus, and we have, in order for that culture to change, we have to make that a problem for the parent too. They can't have a kid come in constantly and beat up their neighbor, so they should be suspended for the bus, or they lose their bus privileges. The concern you have is the students that have IEPs, where their IEP, they don't do well if they're in a confined space for a long period of time. So there's nothing you can really do except for try to separate that person. And the only way you can do that is break up the buses a little bit.
So
And
I have to defend principals a little bit on that. I do, because I think some of it also falls to the drivers, right? And we've asked them to do some things which, sitting in both seats, I can tell you is also not happening. So while I think we always have kids who are a little squirrely on the bus, right? Especially if you ask them to sit there really close to their not so best friend for 40 minutes or an hour. But we have asked drivers to do things like assign seats and assign zones and those kinds of things. And when I, as a principal, and I don't do a ton of bus discipline, so that's a good thing for me, but when I go and say, hey, where's their assigned seat? The answer is often, well, they don't have one. So I think there's a lot of...
Mr. Martino was here, he would say when he ran a bus,
I know, but...
he had the young kids up front.
And that's a good strategy.
Yeah,
That's what I'm saying.
That kind of stuff, I'm not sure is happening, and so I think we also need, as much as they push back, the principals need to be doing more, I think we also need to push back a little bit and Rich is right, you don't put a kindergartner on the back of the bus with a 5th grader, that's a recipe for disaster. So, that'll be the only time I say that, I promise. But, so I think we do have to push back a little too on that, because I think principals can do what they can do, but the bus drivers also have to manage their bus with kids on it. So I do have to stick up for them a little bit, and I think we do kick kids off the bus when we can and when it's egregious, but at the same time, I have one bus driver who has 10 kids on our bus, and I get more bus referrals from that bus with 10 kids who have seatbelts than I do from the other 3 buses combined. So I think we have to kind of look at it globally too. It's not just that principals aren't enforcing bus rules, but oftentimes bus drivers aren't enforcing bus rules. So I think it's a two-way street.
Right. And maybe the bus companies, I think we know we have strong employees and weak employees, and so, they could change that bus driver, be switched out with another bus driver, we'll try a different route.
Right, so each throwing a bus at it.
Maybe the principal just getting on the bus at the end.
We've
would
all
be-
ridden buses too, can I tell you?
Ah,
It's
that
my
would-
least
that would-
favorite time of the year.
But to answer your question, Jeff, certainly the board cannot add buses, that's what the board wants to do, right? So,
You need a motion?
What's the study? Is there a study on it that says, other than, is there any data that we have requires another bus. I don't know, I'm not on the bus committee. It's just a recommendation from the contractor.
Well, there was several buses that were 3 to a seat in the middle school.
It's based on how many people are, the overcrowding, the discipline. There's a stack of paper with discipline, and I was asking the other day, what's the statistical data behind the discipline? What are we dealing with as far as it is a heavy discipline? Is it light? What are we dealing with? Someone calling someone a name or somebody hitting somebody? There's difference.
Well, they were throwing stuff at the driver.
Exactly,
Mrs.
so-
Drexler would back up, I mean, she would, I think, say that there are issues, right? So
Yeah, they
it's
said
not
very
just the bus company saying,
No, it's not just the bus
They
company.
had students that were repeat offenders that they weren't able to remove from the buses for various reasons.
Right, 'cause in the middle school is really where the problem is, because you do have, in the high school, a lot of kids drive, so those buses are not going to be full, and, you know, in the state's infinite wisdom, you can't, you know, say, I'm not gonna ride the bus so we can consolidate and save some money that way. However, for the middle school, no one really can walk to school, and no one, you know, hardly anyone is dropped off. It's mostly bus, you know, so you do have a lot of the elementary school kids that walk in or parents drop off, but that's really, for the middle school, most of them ride the bus.
I haven't looked, but middle school enrollment's flat for next year or up, down? No?
I think you have the enrollment sheets were handed out earlier.
This is,
But you should be able to see
Yeah, you're right.
the classes moving down those grades. You should be able to
Should go down about 20.
get to see. get a look.
so this is kind of like
It should be around 800. That's the number they provided at the orientation. Well, their slide had 800 something, 801, I believe.
So have we beat up transportation enough for
I
sure?
think we're gonna move to
Yeah, I know.
another big number of technology.
All right, in technology, I reduced the 135,000 for the Skyward, 30,000 for the data warehouse, and 40,000 for the price reduction that Scott Matz had come up with based on getting better pricing.
Is that for all the endpoints that they're adding to the high school for the one-to-one? Is that,
No, I think they've already been asked.
They've already been
Yeah,
added.
so these numbers reflect all the, as Mr. Harley would say, beating up of the vendors.
Vendors, yes.
So that's,
Yeah, is that done, the beating up of the vendors, is that done?
so these numbers are all good, right? But maybe that's how Mr. Harley hurt his hand, perhaps that was.
Yeah.
you're gonna give me a better price.
I believe this is a lot of infrastructure costs.
Apparently he pushed it.
Yeah, so if I recall correctly, it was Amity and Mocassee that needed upgrades for the wireless technology.
Yeah, it's everything, the refresh of the buildings when they were built and adding.
Yeah, and I mean, my question is, I know Scott's not here. It is, and he'll probably say, no, we've been kicking this can down the road long enough, but is there anything we can put off for another year? Can we refresh some, what we need to really refresh, and then is there anything to?
Is there any Christmas list items on this list?
Not that I'm aware of, but again, it would be good to see the line item details, or at least a whole lot of routers and other things.
And I know when talking to Scott, one of the things you don't want to do with technology is wait a year because things change. And he was trying to keep things all aligned and not have one building fall too far behind another building, because then he's playing catch up, and then that technology is kind of outdated in one building. So he's trying to keep it all rolling. I remember it was a year and a half ago, he did the Wi-Fi hotspots in the high school, and we did the trend right before graduation to get the kid ring in, because he knew that was the only time he could get that done, and we knew we were going to one-to-one in a year or so, but he had to get the infrastructure in place, because he ran tests around the building where there were dead zones, but he also...
If I understand, if I'm correct, we've got high school where it needs to be in preparation, right? We're talking about now the other schools in the district.
Correct, yeah, I think there's some security software, like the web filtering needs to be upgraded.
Right.
It's something that's in here, the firewalls.
Now, is is the labor for all of the install in the technology budget, or is that just, is it we just, labor's already there, or they're being tasked to do these installs as
My
part of the
understanding is
normal?
doing it internally.
Yeah.
Right.
So there's no extra,
That's what he told me. I know he's explained some of that's kind of foreign, like switches. There's like 40 switches. You can get those. I don't know what they are, but the E-rate, he can do E-rate with some of them.
Yeah, he's got
The
money
firewall.
back,
He's got it all in there, and he was explaining some of it to me today. We're trying to think of things that, if it was possible, was there anything that he absolutely needed this year to see?
yeah, I mean, I'm just, and I know, it's anything that you can push off till, all till next year. I would just ask one more time.
Yeah, but I know, I think he has plans for next year as well.
Oh, I'm sure.
It's,
He has a plan.
I think the middle schools needs to be upgraded next year. I think you're right. I think it's the elementary schools this year and the middle
Yeah.
school.
Kathleen, the 400, the property services, the 17.2 to 120, is that the iPad?
Yeah.
These costs?
Yeah, for the lease, yep.
Does any of these, so I know like the infrastructure was, when the building was constructed, right, it was part of the building budget for building that building. So, I mean, is any of this fall under capital at all, or is it?
We had asked him about that. There was quite a number of things that he could put under capital. It's, do you want to use those dollars?
Well, I mean, I know it's not quite what we'd all like it to be, but we budgeted $500,000 a year for capital improvements. Should some of that money be part of the technology, and we can have Casey and Scott arm wrestle and see
The wins?
who wins, yeah.
The problem with that is then you're losing ground in both areas. We're already behind in building the grounds, and if we just do a set amount and leave them to argue about it, we fall behind in both areas.
I think we would have to, should come to Mike's committee to determine which direction it was going to go, rather than leave it to the two of them.
Yeah, and get a big enough number, you can finance it, capital improvement.
I know you had that recommendation before, Mr. Miller. I do disagree that, I agree that certain capital improvements should be financed, but you're talking technology that we're going to throw out in 5 years. I find it hard to finance something that's only going to be around for 2 years, as opposed to, making a repair to a roof that's going to last 20 years,
Fair enough?
I'm just gonna ask a follow-up question maybe, but just making it obvious, but like we just did apps and we're doing a bunch of stuff at our club, but to bring all these iPads in, is this system ready for it?
That was done last year, and
Wow.
That's all. We were getting ready, we were getting prepared for this years ahead of time.
Wow, I think this is gonna take a lot.
Okay, any other questions?
Is he gonna follow up with, maybe, like, some high levels on the major changes?
Mm-hmm. I'll follow up with him tomorrow.
Yeah, look at the breakdown.
Like,
He sent me, we went over it, but he's gonna have to write it down.
Looks like the 300
like
and
basically everything except for 500 and 800.
Okay.
You want to see the breakdown?
Or just, even if he bullets out, like, here are the major,
Yeah.
components of that, will be fine. Like, I definitely don't want invoices.
Right.
I would prefer just him to tell us,
Yes, that's we're out of
it's because I doubt any of it's not like
I know
it's
he
stuff we
says
don't
there's
know
a
about.
new
It's not
server in
like
there.
it's-
There's a server in there,
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
some kind of switches that you have, there's a whole bunch of them, and
Like,
like
it could be
10
like,
of them, and I'm not sure
prepping
exactly
for
what they're
iPads,
for.
here's these 5 things. we
Exactly,
have,
but if he
whatever
just
it
puts
is,
that down on paper, it'd
Yeah,
probably make a
doesn't
lot
have
more
to
sense
be-
to somebody.
Right? Is it worth it at all to ask, I'm not questioning Mr. Matz's, abilities in what he's picking out, specking out, but is it all worth it to have a contractor come in and give us a bid and see what they would recommend equipment-wise and what the cost would be?
That might wind up costing us more money. He's dealing with pretty low cost.
Definitely from
I don't know that.
I know we had asked him the question when we first went over this budget, he's going to take a whole, several buildings and upgrade all the switches in all the buildings all at once. I said, well, what do you do with the old ones? Because, you know, you still have functioning units, so you could do a building, and then all those switches that you're decommissioning, you set those aside, and those become your spares for the building
I
you're
think
gonna
they're,
get
I
to the
think they're
following.
6, 7 years old at this
Yeah,
point. and
but they're still, I mean, they're still,
They're security risks. They're not patched.
there's
Yeah,
security.
you get that old
patches.
with network switches, yes, you get that old, you have a problem.
And those switches, I think they're like 3,000 a pop,
They are,
With
I think
the
you have
E-rate.
40.
but it's like 4,000 or 5,000 without E-rate, because they're kind of costing out.
Yeah, well, that's right, the E-rate is the federal money that you're getting back by buying the equipment, so he's saving about 50%.
And I was asking him because how I was gonna take the cost of Skyward out of this year's budget with some of it, and I know it's only moving it from one year to the other, but there is also the option of like the firewall. He said taking that to this year would be a lot better from a staffing perspective if he had his firewall now. And I did have those dollars somewhere, I just don't have them in front of me. I'd have to take my screen down.
There's money in the budget to do that now?
I could, because if you see where the fund balance is still left at the 5.2 million, it's not a huge expense. I know it wasn't like, it was under $10,000. And if it could do that to clear up some staffing issues, you know, from a time perspective, that might be something to do now.
It's one thing you have to get in front of. What he's doing with the firewall as well is that it's going to protect the iPads when they're at home.
Exactly. So it's a good thing to bring that on now before, and have them up and running and make sure they get all the glitches out and do what they need to do.
Kids surveying that with our property, what could go wrong?
Just something to pass on. All right?
I'd like to see details as I asked.
Oh,
before.
absolutely. I'll have him break it out.
For this and for, still for the other 600 and some of the other numbers. Is there like a 610, 620, or are there roll-ups? Could we see some of that for?
You're seeing it on a high level.
Right,
This
the
is-
ones with all the variants.
But I can definitely put it in more of a
The next
detail.
layer down for the items that are,
With the new system, I could do it even faster.
yes,
I had to throw that in, of course. But yeah, no, that, I could break it down to a more detailed level.
and I think that would help us make decisions.
This new system that you're getting, is that gonna also allow you to do reporting and, like, what's the platform that it's on?
The what?
The new budgeting system you're gonna
Yeah.
be using? Are you able to do reporting out of it and, like, presentations essentially? Like
Absolutely.
a
That
Tableau,
thing,
like a Tableau style?
it's even like from the HR to the payroll aspect, the HR, it has all the employees in there with all their certification with one, so you're not going into two different areas. And then the finance side, there's for salary negotiations, you can put in all kinds of different things like the transportation program.
Oh.
Different things you can play with in there
I
just to see.
think you're also taking jabs at Mr. Small and his
Oh, no,
technology.
I respect the spreadsheet, but I also work with the spreadsheet, and when you can automate that and become more efficient, I'm all for it. So, no, it's a nice little tiny button you press, and it downloads it right to Excel, and then there's PowerPoint presentations, the graphs come right off.
This is
of
why
it.
we don't need a business manager to replace you, right? Is that-
This is the efficiencies, I'm creating efficiencies. See that? At the same cost annually. Now, up front, there's a little bit of a cost, but from an annual perspective, I'm not.
Said like a true administrator.
See that? All right, so I'll get more breakdown on these, just as well as the other ones. I can also give you the more detailed reports if it does make it easier. It just breaks it into the categories for you. All right, special education, this hasn't changed. This is the same that was presented the other day.
And it is what it is.
Those are just the professional
Actually, I
services.
guess the question here is because this does fluctuate so much year to year, and we just don't know, right?
That's why I put the high dollar amount there. 'Cause
So,
I
I mean, potentially there could be some significant savings here, potentially not.
This year we overran. Last year we had savings.
I mean, there's a significant jump from the previous 5 years.
You're asking about supplies, right?
Yeah, I mean, I get,
Go back.
No, services, right?
I get the other stuff. I mean, that, you don't have any control over your guessing. I mean, you can't forecast that,
talked
but
about this the last time.
the
I'd have to
supplies
look
seem
back.
a little,
There's more supplies needed there as they run out of certain things, but I can't remember specifically. But when I give the breakdown, I'll break it down. We talked about this the
whatever it is,
last
they've
meeting.
had it for 6 years, and then all of a sudden they needed more of it. That seems odd.
I wonder if somewhere.
Some get reassigned.
Well, I wonder if somewhere in there we said, like, we have a kid who needs, like,
Something specific. I don't remember what it was.
like a voice, like, do we have a kid who needs like a communications device, like an augmented communications device or something all of a sudden as part of their
IP. There's something, I just don't remember, but I definitely give the breakdown with the rest of it anyway, so. And athletics is another one that did not change. It's the same as what it was before.
What? You want me to be quiet?
Say that.
Her comments when she was here was that she could cut the 600 area.
Who said that?
That was up on my notes.
That's right. She did say she could cut it, but she didn't come back to me with anything. I didn't follow up either, so
She can cut it?
I can actually email her and ask her what her cut.
I have a question on athletics.
Okay.
I have a lot of questions, you can be mad at me.
The track coach says.
By the way, 3 meet records today, right? At one point, Mr. Schmidt mentioned the lacrosse teams. That really didn't generate much of a conversation other than my email and one response back. Is he putting that in this year's budget, or is he letting that go? Anybody know?
The lacrosse teams are in the budget.
They shouldn't be, they're club team.
Okay, then they can be cut.
Well,
I know they were in my numbers.
Yeah, but that's,
no, so they're currently, this number has lacrosse teams in the budget?
yeah, she just said that.
Yeah, because, I mean, to be fair, you know, then you have other clubs, you know, what like the ROTC, you have swimming, you have the hockey team, you know, you either do it for one or all. And Mr. Schmidt made up his own rule about a 3-year waiting period. I don't know where he got that, all right? That's his measurement, but it's
Well, I'd be in favor of that in lacrosse because it's been around forever and the parents have done an excellent job of fundraising. I mean, I think as other sports get to that level, I think we talk about adding them in. I think swimming and that, you know, hasn't reached that level yet, but I believe lacrosse is at a level where you have to at least have a discussion. I'm not willing to say get rid of it. I'm willing to say make it a sport. So there's 2 different opinions. So where's everybody else on it?
So we should be having the discussion, so, you know, I was the one that sent the original email out because there was a Facebook post that said, hey, we're going to be official. I'm saying, well, wait, did the board vote on that? So, you know, the club was assuming they were already an official sport. They're not. So that needs to go before the board. And then we can have that discussion and vote on it. So,
Well, can we have the discussion now because we're talking about it?
but we're not in the voting meeting. So,
we can.
We've already done straw polls like all night.
I mean, the straw poll is not a vote, right? So, I mean, you know, you can have that discussion.
Well, the question was, is it in the budget?
Right, so.
It is in the budget.
So
I believe I heard the answer was yes.
It should not be in the budget until it's approved.
Well, I'm not debating that.
Yeah.
No, but
You
you're
asked how
right.
we got on the topic. You
Yes.
said it was
It's in the budget right now.
Right.
It's definitely in the budget. I know that because I put the spreadsheet together and I know it's in there.
And I have a problem with how it got there. It snuck it in, it got snuck in there, and then we found out about it. Okay, and the problem is right. So, I mean, I'm opposed to it from that standpoint right there. I mean, from the
Previous
beginning,
conversation
when,
wasn't going to be there.
right, from the beginning, when they brought that when they left the Abbey Athletic Club, or whatever it was, we said it's going to remain a club sport. And that was
Wait.
the board at the time.
All right, this is
That was
board.
the agreement, at that time to have them come here. And now, Mr. Schmidt make up his own rule about 3 years or whatever. And I think that's unfair to the other teams. Especially our ROTC they've done a lot of fundraising. They, if you look at their course and everything in the back there, they have a lot of fundraising. Well, then they should be included too.
Well, let's see their
And
costs.
I think, where do you do it, like I said, with swimming, you have all these other, hockey, I don't even know there's hockey more.
I mean, my foster son's in lacrosse, and we're talking, he's 30-something, and he plays lacrosse for Daniel Boone. So I think lacrosse has put in their time. If I'm looking at the overall budget correctly, it actually went down from last year with lacrosse added in, or am I not looking at this? Right, so the budget's down with the sport added in.
Okay.
Well, I mean, it does have to get voted in. I mean, you can't just,
Yeah.
Right.
yeah, but I'll say that, like, the athletic director doesn't just decide which sport gets in.
Right, there's the merit of having.
I don't agree, though, that you have to do it all or none. I believe that it should be, they should be looked at individually, and if the swimming team wants to become an official sport, then they should come forward and discuss it and present a case.
Well, you already had the athletic director make his own decision to sneak in a sport that we hadn't approved, okay? Now, he's championing that individual club, okay? But that's not, I'm sure the
I don't
hockey
agree
team
with
would
that,
be able to
but I
tell
also
him.
don't want to punish anybody because of what he did. I think if we're taking it out of the budget, right? We're taking it out.
How much is it?
I mean, the amount isn't the issue for me, it's how it got there. And I don't want to punish the kids by voting against
Well,
it.
right
But I
now,
think there needs to be something for Mr. Schmidt to follow the damn policy. Because how many times have we, every year, he brings something last minute, okay? You got to get this approved, and we need it approved tomorrow, okay? Yeah,
All right.
I'm not,
Okay.
I'm done.
I came
Well,
out
this is my first time, and I disagree. I mean, we all got the same email. So this isn't a
The
shock.
only reason
You
you
asked
got the
him
email
for,
is because
we asked him to put a
my
budget
question-
together, and he put it in like any other person would in their budget.
You can only put things in the budget that the school board has allowed to exist.
Okay, I can explain. First, the 3-year, Rob and I, and a few others were brainstorming ideas, and we had, what is the criteria for a club to, really, it was to volunteer for a paid stipend to exist for a club. And we're thinking of mentioning ROTC as the prime example, where it has been a volunteer teacher proposing a club, building that program over a period of time. And we looked at, okay, let's say 3 years. The first year is volunteer. The second year we evaluated. And by the third year, if that's a sustainable club, let's look at it for stipend criteria. So I think that's where George may have gotten that 3-year from. I told George the other day, no way is lacrosse going to be a paid club when I was with him on the field. He mentioned, I said, no, we're not going to do that, because I know it has to be board approved. So George will be spoken to on this and a number of other things he's done, budgetary wise. That is a no-go with us. He doesn't do that. So lacrosse should not be in the budget, but there are a host of other sports that should be up for consideration. Hockey, swimming, lacrosse, junior ROTC, I mean, those should be. And tonight, how much are we going to support the bowling team? TSA. Those are things also that we should discuss, because we have teams going to state finals, regionals, nationals, and I've asked for those numbers that they're working on. So lacrosse should not be in the budget because it's not special, although my daughter plays it, I'd love to have it, but that's not the procedure. George, and I don't want to hang on George too much, but he does things sometimes, a lot of times last minute, and we're putting some corrections in place for that. But I love all our club teams, I go watch them, but there's a procedure that we have to follow. And lacrosse should not be listed because there are other sports also. And we need to put criteria in
for paid stipend positions, and we have teachers who are volunteering who should be getting paid stipends for what they're doing. But we have to develop procedures for that. So lacrosse should come out, and we want to talk about anything. Let's talk next meeting about what procedures that we can put in place to get these volunteer teachers paid, and also which clubs should be removed for lack of interest. So that's what our conversation was. What should come on, what should come off, and what's the procedure to make them paid? Because a lot of times, staff members go, I love fencing. I want to be the fencing coach. I'll do it for free. And then 3 years later, there's 300 kids fencing. Hey, I want to be paid for this. Well, you sold it as a free duty you would do. So once again, junior or OTC was a prime example that we looked at because of the great job that staff member has done with that program. But lacrosse should come out because it's not followed the correct procedures to become a boom recognized sport.
Was the JROTC stipend in here?
No, we just began talking about procedures on how to recognize from a free volunteer program to, hey, this is sustainable, maintainable. How can we turn this into a paid stipend position? But also, what's the criteria to take something out? And we were looking at maybe 10 members like we did for our class. If we have 10 people participating year after year after year and it's growing, okay. That was sold in as a volunteer. Let's look at what the stipend rate should be for the contract and how to do it, but also what comes off. And give people enough time so that if they only have 9 members, they don't lose it if they could bolster their attendance through recruitment or something else.
Again, I just want to stress that I don't have a problem with, supporting if we're adding lacrosse in. I just have a problem with how it got in here. And it's been a pattern, so I just will put aside that.
All right, well, I'm going to say that my sport's the most impacted by lacrosse. And I still think it should be added. It's been a club sport for a super long time. I think as these others reach that status, I'd support junior ROTC tomorrow to be put in the budget personally. But I think lacrosse has put in its time. Whether you like the way it was done or not, I can't speak to that. But I think it's something, I'm going to bring it to a vote on the 14th, so just so everyone's prepared.
And when we're talking about lacrosse, we're talking about boys and girls?
Correct.
Okay.
And that is taking numbers away from my sport drastically. But I don't care because I see the way the program's going and it's a positive thing. So just be prepared. I'll bring it up on the 14th for the motion.
Why is it taking away from here?
Well, you got kids that normally do track, jump over to the lacrosse. But that's that's how it is. Yeah, football's in the fall, so it jumped in on the spring where there was no, it doesn't impact other than spring sports, so maybe it impacts baseball and softball as well. I can only speak for track.
Let's make it easier to create a policy. Let them go through the steps. It goes in, and there's no favoritism. You get upset and you like that sport better than my sport or whatever.
Yeah, I think you have to have criteria so it's transparent to us. Not that it's just stuck in the budget and you voted for something, you don't know what you voted for. So, when we have our meeting next for the committee of the whole, we can certainly have that as an item for the board to consider and then vote on later in the month.
So he was told, when I was given the budget in the very beginning, I was told that it was going to go through the approval process, to go ahead and put it in there, to put it a placeholder. Okay, now, if there was this much discussion on it, I was not told to remove it.
I was just told no.
Okay, so
there's no discussion.
there it is. So I was not told that it was, I was not told that, so that's why it's still in there. And he didn't have
It's not a problem you created.
Okay,
It's
good. Just making sure. I mean, he said that it was going to be put on the agenda. It was right, whatever.
We're going to have it on the committee.
If we can, I'm not going to be on the 21st. I have a conflict with my borough meeting. So obviously, this is something I want to vote on.
You can call in.
Well, it's going to be hard to call in when you guys meet at the same time.
I'll support it.
I really want to bring this up on the 14th where I can make a vote. Maybe I lose, that's fine. But I know we can do votes because we're allowed to. So I don't want anybody shocked in 2 weeks or 1 week, wherever we are at, that I bring this up and put a motion on the floor and just giving it out there right now because I won't be on here on the 21st.
I thought we were having a
Well-
special voting meeting anyway.
We're gonna have a special voting meeting anyway, and there's no, we can take items at any time off the committee of the whole and vote on it right there. We don't have to necessarily wait till the end of the month. So.
That's why I'm saying. I'm
So
giving
Mr.
everything.
Rathgeb, when we craft the, the agenda, we're gonna ask administration, give us the cost for adding, the ladies and the men's lacrosse. We have the cost, and we make it official. We can pull that off the committee of the whole and vote on it.
This might be an off-the-wall question, but what message does it send that if the administration says they would like to put a process in place to go through, what prevents everybody from just circumventing the administration, just coming straight to the board with everything and taking it to a vote? I mean, Jim mentioned that he'd like to put a process in place, go through that, and try and make sure there's some fairness in there, and I think it's a great process. I'm just throwing it out there. Doesn't it send a message to everybody, say, just circumvent Jim, bring it to the board, we'll vote on it and do pass it anyway?
Well,
It's just a thought, you know.
it doesn't go on the agenda. When we do the agenda meeting, it's myself, Mr. Rathgeb, Mr. Hurley,
Okay,
Mr.
so everybody's
Harris,
in there anyway, I got you.
Mr. Lauren, and
It's more a
Kathleen.
question than a shot. I'm not trying to make a shot at anything, I'm just trying to understand the
No,
process.
we try to, the goal is to make sure everything's in public, that you're putting it out in public. This is what we're going to do. You let it go a certain amount of time for comment, and then you vote on it.
I got you.
Now, Mr. Dursler's desire is, when he sees it on the committee of the whole, he's going to ask for a motion that we vote on it that night. And we can do that. We can vote something off the committee of the whole if we choose to.
Yeah, and I understand where you're coming from, but again, I think this has been around a long time, and some of these other sports we're talking about have not been around as long, but sure, the policy's not in place, and I understand that, so, good point, valid point.
And if they're doing something with if we were considering something for the junior ROTC, they would, I think, similarly fit that mold of, years in service and volunteers and particular.
I don't know how many people participate, but swimming has been around forever. We've had people swimming.
I've been swimming for years. Long time.
You have? He said he is.
He meant floating.
All right, Mr. Wolf, where are we at here? We done with the next,
Superintendent Central.
All right, so the superintendent central office curriculum, no changes to this budget. The original budget, there was 90,000 taken out of the 600 category.
What was the line item? Like, what was the total?
Books, textbooks.
No, I meant, we're taking lacrosse out. What was the number that was in there?
Oh, I have to go back to the spreadsheet, the original, if you want me to.
No.
I get it off the screen there when I go somewhere
I'll
else.
do it now, I'm just curious.
Okay.
I just remember in the conversation that they were already,
I want to say it's 5,000.
they were paying for
Per-
a lot of their own stuff, even though they would be a school-supported sport.
5,000 for girl, 5,000 for boy, I'm thinking, but it might have been 3,000, I don't remember.
lacrosse? Yeah, I mean,
They had equipment already ready to
they're
go.
coming on board with the uniforms and all that, but you would need to go into the cycle. Now you're having uniforms in the 4-year, 5-year cycle, but the initial cost would be lower because they have everything in place, but you're embedding costs down the road.
I'd be supporting our teams appropriately. How are we going down? We're adding lacrosse and we're going down. Are we cutting things away from the kids?
And he really doesn't know a lot about the transportation, so we never really gave him
That's a good
a
question.
solid transportation.
And I guess we need to make sure the transportation number's in there, because that would be the biggest number.
Yeah,
But the transportation,
Yeah,
was in the transportation.
it is, I handle it, because I was working on
Was it a coding change that was
I
always?
wouldn't know anything about how many things.
I think in the past, for our athletic budgets, transportation was in there, right?
Yeah, it was.
Now it's pulled out, right?
We put it in the transportation, I have the
So
capacity of
in
putting
essence,
it
the
in
athletic budget
efforts.
has gone up, really, right? Because transportation used to be in there, I think, right?
I don't know if it was in, I think I pulled it out completely to show the true effect
I mean, the numbers would suggest that
in the
it's
last
been
2
taken
years,
out
I
altogether.
think 3 years maybe. But
Well,
in the
but-
past, I might have
If
left
you
it
look
in
year over
there.
year,
It's $9,000, I mean, that's.
I mean, it's less than it
That's
is in
what's taken out in
2012
like
right now.
16, 17. Because the numbers are, you know.
Yeah, I didn't do it at 14, 15 is still in there.
That would make sense that if you look at the totals there, Dave, 16, 17 was a low number. I mean, the difference could just be they didn't have to buy uniforms for one of the teams that year.
I'll double check, because I thought I pulled it out, but I'll
Well,
double check.
uniforms have not been in the budget for probably, 5 years?
I thought they were in.
They're in now,
Yeah. And weren't they in for baseball before?
baseball. Right?
We all bought our own for years.
We haven't bought, this is coming up budget next year, is the first year we're buying uniforms or any sports in the budget.
We bought our own.
Every team has bought their own uniforms probably for at least 5 years, is what I'm thinking.
That's why we were trying to have it included in the budget, so we would relieve the kids from this endless, fundraising. So that's why we decided to put it in there and then put it on a regular cycle for replacing.
I'll follow proper procedure, I won't bring that up for a vote on the 14th, because it seems like we need a lot more numbers for lacrosse, so, just so you guys know, I'll wait on that, I won't do that, because it seems like there's more questions.
But I'll come in later.
Where are we at now?
Superintendent central office curriculum. No change to that, just the 90,000 drop that I brought to you the last time we were here. And then business office with the tax services is the next one for board and board services.
It's like a theme of everyone's supplies are going up substantially. Is there just something jacked up in cost, or is there something that we're buying that we didn't used to buy? Just like it's a trend, like, the previous slide you had, it was 6,000 to 12.
Yeah, that's in the
180, another
superintendent budget.
50,000 for central office, for supplies.
Central office, the supply, that's 600. Supplies is broken into the textbooks as well. There are textbooks in there and a lot of the curriculum. That's what we dropped that line item, 90,000. There was a couple of cycles coming through for textbooks or something.
Is that the 600 supplies?
Yeah, that's,
Which is still up 40.
Jen, what's up with your supplies, man?
Yeah, I've never seen that before. Board services?
Yeah, that's your salaries.
I've broken out completely all the way through because you guys aren't seeing this
Latte
before.
machine.
No,
But I wanted to
it
make
hasn't
sure
come
that
through
it's
yet.
not
I gotta
all
talk to
300 to 900.
Massage chairs.
Well,
No, I haven't got my direct deposit on
Board
this yet.
services has a lot of the legal in there and all that.
okay, so
And
the using
advertising.
fees are like Hasbro.
Whatever fees that you guys are, when you go to your organizations, but it's also HASBA, it's also, I don't know if the newspaper is in there. The newspaper might go
I
that
would
way.
think that would be in the
That's
other.
in, it's
in the
either
other.
that and the 500 or the
Even under board
800.
services, our supplies or whatever, I don't know.
Well, that's what I was
I don't get
asking.
supplied with anything.
But that's apparently our salary, so I
What about our?
That's the new chairs that we got.
It must be that raise.
That's what it's talking about.
Is that what it was, all the awards? It's probably all the awards, certificates.
For each of us individually.
All the gold apples.
But on a serious note, why did that jump up?
Sort of some-
Or what is that? Do we know what that is?
And then it went down. They're gonna share on the
It says nobody's paying
Does Lauren know?
$2,000?
Do you know what the service, supplies under board service? It jumped up a lot.
What category daily order? Retirement stuff? They come off.
I thought there was retirement stuff, there's the Golden Apple, there's certificates that they give away at the board meetings. There's all different things, and if we're in the binders, there's binders that they do to store the actual agendas, the minutes, the minutes.
Yeah.
The board never did recognition of kids.
I never did any of that. And I think a lot of those supplies were coming out of the
Okay,
business
cut to the
office.
chase, since I think we're pretty much down to the we're through the budgets here, right?
Yep, and debt services is the
Yeah.
last,
So,
and then
if I'm looking at next year's budget, we're up like $1.3 million in salaries. We have a step and column movement for the teacher, which was $1 million, and then increase of 600 for Peasers, but we get half of that back, so $1.3 million for that. We've exhausted. Now we've run through all the debt savings we've had. We're through some debt services back up $1 million. So that's like between that's $2.3 million right there between
yep.
the salaries and the debt service, right? And then our other big, we have increase in special ed, increase in transportation, increase in technology, right? So that's really where the bulk of our monies increases are at, right?
Yes.
Yes. From speaking with Lauren, I guess Lauren had a conversation with Lou, we really timed it right with refinancing our debt. We pulled the trigger at exactly the right time.
Advanced refund. Advanced refundings are no longer allowed under the tax bill that went into effect last December. So all of this refunding that we did, with the exception of the big one with the swap, you can still do that. But all of the rest, that's the only way you can do in advance, if you will. The 7 million, well, not quite 7 million on that, that you've accomplished between the bank qualifieds and the others, aside from the swap that we did here, no longer allowed.
All right.
So, I know we had a couple other of the out-of-the-box ideas, right? I don't know if they were worth talking about. I think the other big one was potentially, is there a way to get our own cyber school up and running, and what would that do, or what would we bring back in, right?
Well, Rob, we have
We're doing Berks Online,
Right.
which the cost for Berks Online, we just went over this at the last meeting, is like roughly $5,000 something per kid, as opposed to probably what we pay now for like 10. What's our per student?
Berks Online right now, we have about 26 students, I'm shooting for the hip here, 25 students, plus 3 students that are blended, I believe, right now.
We're saving about $5,000 per student with BOI.
I figured roughly, I did it was between $200,000 to $250,000 of pure cost avoidance with our current programming as is. We use the IU for that to help us out with it. It does involve some staff hours, it involves some of my hours, it also involves some of the guidance department's hours. It's not overwhelming though. The IU does primarily, a lot of the nitty gritty stuff there. They take care of it, but there's been a substantial savings there. There's more kids out there that are, they're clearly there, but we do have a current program that does.
So I guess the question was, do we run our own cyber school without having to cost would be increasing staffing, because we'd have to run that ourselves, right? Or is it do we make do we keep the Berks Online, but market it better, make a better push to get some of these kids that are in other cyber schools, back in house, or the folks that are thinking of leaving for cyber school, get them to stay with us and Berks Online, right?
Just for informational purposes, just so in terms of cyber, we have about 25 or so, as I said, in ours. The last count that I have for cyber students is we have 55 students in cyber schools. There was another number floating around, but someone made a mistake there. That number they included regular brick and mortar charter schools with the cyber schools in that number. But currently we have 55 out there. We have about 25 in our current program. Those 55 they're certainly out there for us to get. It'll probably take more of an investment for us in terms of doing that. I think the first thing, and which I certainly don't think we would want to discuss too much here, but and we're in the process of negotiations with the VA in terms of an MOU that would be appropriate. So I think the first step is right there, because there are limits in terms of what we can do in terms of advertising to students under the current agreement.
But I just a yes or no answer is, should we be looking at starting our own cyber school, not using BLL? Or is that something that you think is beyond the scope of, beyond our, obviously we need to bring in staff to do that, right? So is it worth it for us to try and do that, or do you think it's best to stick with BLL?
That's a loaded question, because there are school districts that have done that successfully. There are also school districts, which I'll be happy to share this with you, like the Quakertown School District, who went that direction. And the answer is we need to be careful when we do it. They just had to cut their cyber program because it cost them $750,000 a year as a school district. They realized after running this for several years. But I do think we can expand what we're doing, and I want to do it for academic purposes. Potentially, as a result of that, there are 55 kids out there. You're never going to get all 55 back because some don't want to be there. But if we are able to create a robust program with the handcuffs off, in other words, it allows us to offer a whole variety of courses for students. We can then compete with these cyber charter schools that offer everything from AP Latin to whatever class you want. If we have that opportunity to do that, it puts us in a much better situation to try to prevent other kids from going, and also try to bring some of these kids back. And yes, it will take significant staff hours to put it together, but I also think it's something worth exploring, not just from the financial standpoint, because I think it's good for kids in the long run, academically, to provide these types of opportunities for them. The more courses that we can offer them, it gives more choices to parents and families.
So basically, I don't know how much I can say either, but trying to offset some of the costs of implementing the MOU could be with those students coming back and doing more of a blended type program with us. So that's a way we could offset some of the costs that the MOU has by bringing a handful of those students back, and that cost would be zero. It would be, we would start making money if we could do that.
So then, is it worth the analysis time to actually sit down, do the analysis again, or is that done already?
I would recommend speaking to those families who are in the program, asking why they left. Was it lack of service on our part? Was it lack of options? And then developing a program that fits the majority of those needs. Once again, I like a blended program. And if the MOU could be implemented, we would have bodies most likely to assist with that program.
I think it's a great idea. It's just going to improve for the other kids. Getting to a blended education system is where everyone's heading anyway.
There's a hand.
The idea would be it would be blended for the faculty as well, correct? In other words, if I'm a math teacher, I could have 3 periods of in class and 2 periods of cyber, potentially, right? So, or if you're talking about some of these other classes that are more advanced or more specialized, assuming you need to hire some staff, you could hire staff that could then, the current staff would be able to share in some of those classes where they're able. And then the other folks could, anyone that we brought in would also be able to support other classroom teaching, right?
Well, we would have to speak to those families. Did they leave because of lack of rigor?
Yeah, I'm just using the example of
so
who would offer,
And I can also say the talks in the county with the superintendents, we've been meeting, talking about shared programming, where, and I'll go with Latin. Daniel Boone has an online Latin program. We have 10 students. Exeter has 3. YMSing has, well, they actually have Latin, but 4 students. It could be taught out of Boone, and students would dial in.
If we have that program, couldn't we also offer it to students outside of our district?
That's what I'm saying. We're talking about, okay, so Exeter has a program of, mandolin playing. and we had 3 students here, we could buy into their program, and we would have areas set up, like we did with the Chinese language program.
It's just technically, if I'm,
Well, we can trade services.
correct me if I'm wrong, maybe, if we're doing the Latin here, we would sell, and they would buy into our Latin
We
program.
could send some kids for mandolin, and they could send some kids for Latin.
Right.
But also, what about
And we had all this new technology, which Smats is putting in, so we have the bandwidth
Well,
to
what
handle.
about the cyber school? Like, you know, could you also, we have kids that are in cyber school, could you have other kids from other districts coming to our cyber school?
With the cyber school, a lot of times the base curriculum, you're still going to be purchasing that from companies, so there'll still be a fee associated with that, but they will provide the basic core content.
Yeah, but if we're saving money for our kids, I would assume the others just.
Yeah, so the way Berks Online works, Jeff, so the IU provides the administrative piece for to get that program up and running. And then they purchase the classes from cyber academies to provide that. So the IU is actually buying the teachers out of the market, and then they provide.
Yeah, they're buying curriculum.
They're buying the curriculum out of the market.
So we can buy the curriculum for our teachers.
Yeah, there's a couple of vendors, like K-12 is one of the leading providers. I think Core Connections, I would say, the one. There's a couple of them out there, and the IU actually has access to all of them. That is one of their advantages that they have.
I mean, I would assume we would also have conversations with schools that have implemented successfully.
Absolutely. Actually, we had conversations with those school districts, which is the basis of why we're talking about it.
So I mean, for one, this was what a quote unquote cost savings idea that was brought up. So it sounds to me, if I could summarize it, I was talking to the union, we're looking at different options, but I don't see it as being necessarily a optimistic money saver for next year. It might save us some money down the road, but I don't think we can bank on it necessarily for next year per se, right? Is that a fair?
I think a year down the road, that's when you can start to hopefully get some of those kids back.
Yeah.
I think Jim is right, though. I think you really do have to look at why folks left in the
Right.
first place. Because having come from cyber world, a lot of folks leave because they think that they don't have to be accountable to the rules, right? So if it's our school, then it's our rules, right? So you may ultimately still lose kids to some of the other cybers, even if you have it here, because we're still going to hold.
Well, it wasn't your idea, we were going to set it up in the basement and they can come and go as they please, right?
Love it. But they still have to come and go according to truancy rules and things like that, which the traditional cybers have a real hard time enforcing those rules. If there are kids and we're going to have to enforce those rules. So some of the reasons people leave are still going to be reasons people leave, whether we have it
Right.
or not.
I agree. So I think one of the other ideas, if I recall, was trying to bring back in some of the IEPs, right? Some of the special needs kids that maybe we're outsourcing right now. Is that correct? Am I thinking correctly?
Well, I'm talking to Shelley, pushing back a little harder when people leave, students want to leave. And the opposite side of that is we know we face lawsuits and we generally will lose those. That's why we let them go so easily. It's more of pushing back and saying we're providing you the service and it's fine and you're happy with it. But
Well, I think it was more of, are there services we're not providing that we could? We have the space, but do we need to add the staff? In that case, would we actually save money or not? Right?
it would all depend on the services that are needed.
So is that probably another idea that would not be fleshed out in time for next year at all, I would imagine, right?
We would have to look at the students who would be leaving and what would be the cost-benefit analysis of having them stay and bringing on more support, and would they support more than one child?
All right. And I think the other easy one was, and actually, I think Mr. Wolf and I would remember this, but, so, are we still on 4 days for summer? Or did that stop for administration?
Last year we were on 4 days. I put an email out to the Supportive Services Union Group to discuss it for this upcoming summer.
we're looking at possibly going back to 5 days. The savings originally was estimated to be about $30,000 by shutting down buildings. However, the buildings were never really shut down.
That would negate the savings, yes.
So
that, I know one of the ideas was to centralize all the offices here in the summertime, and you have to move staff and people around, but then my question is, well, if that's the case, aren't we still using those buildings anyway during the summer? I mean, there's still activities going on, and would we really achieve the savings that are being floated, I guess?
no, I mean, we were going to go out and hire 2 guys in a truck to move all the buildings into this building for the summer. It would cost $30,000 probably, and the savings just aren't there. What we need to do is look at, and we're starting to do that now, there's a meeting tomorrow at 1 o'clock in my office, the principals, GCA, facilities, IT, to go over what's going to be happening in the summer in the buildings, and maybe we could do a rolling shutdown. And the high school has the most things. Amity has the other program over there with Shelley Heads. We can see what's going on, and also for cleaning and other things. So we have band camp coming up, sports programs. They're in high school almost 24/7. So I understand the proposal of shutting it down, but and moving everyone. Well, that's not really realistic. And we do have a number of teachers and staff moving this summer anyway to new locations and buildings back to this building.
Are there any other ideas that I'm missing that we need to discuss? Mr. Strobel's looking at
I think one of the issues that we have, and we're enforcing it more and more, I think I need it earlier, and Warren, tell me if I'm wrong, it was last year, nothing is ordered without a PO. We can't do these ad hoc, willy-nilly, I need something, let's call the vendor and go get it. We need to do 3 bids minimum and make sure we follow the correct process. We have one department in particular that likes to go out and do whatever they want to do. And we need to put a stop to that. And we cut off purchasing, around April, we stopped it. But we have certain departments that don't want to follow that, and we need to put it into it. And that way, we know we're going to be getting the best purchase price. We slow down a little bit and follow the procedures. That's why they're in place.
I mean, you have prerogative to discipline employees that are following procedure, right?
Yes.
So, seems to be correct.
It's the only question I would have with that, and it sounds like a great idea, but for small purchases, is there something like a P card that you put in place where you can keep track of charges to make sure that someone has?
We have a credit card that Kathleen has, that actually made some money on, to go out and
Use that in an emergency?
We have that. We also have the emergency. You could purchase it in an emergency, but let the business office know in 24
Yeah, but no,
hours.
the thing is that the policy with the credit card, they still need to go through the PO process. And this general consensus out there in the rest of the buildings that it takes a long time for it to go through the business office is not accurate. They sent me up, I can get a check in one day.
Software to go right through it.
It's gonna even go faster. It's gonna be when they think about it. No, but in that case, no, it does not take long. I've had several people call me and email me. I've had a check to them the same day, or I release the funds for them to have the availability to use the credit card.
A week ago, I called you.
It was done. So this doesn't, it's not a timely process.
So she has the magic wand, we don't have it, but Kathleen,
I stole it. It's the software.
Yeah, the rule breakers continue to be the same
Yes.
limited individual.
And why is that?
He's correct.
Why do they
For the
continue to
same,
do it?
for the same reason we were talking about lacrosse there earlier. That's all I'm gonna say.
Hey, while I'm thinking of it,
I don't have a question now.
do the payroll numbers reflect reductions in the retirements that we had, by the way? That assuming a lower, higher?
Yes, for the most part, we've just interviewed and made offers to guidance counselors, English teachers, math teachers, and those folks that were retiring were at the top of the pay scale. And when talking to Warren and Kathleen, they put in a much lower amount. And looking at who we were hiring, their experience and education, they fall within the guidelines that we were directed to by the board to find the best person for the greatest value. And we found some great candidates, and two are alumni. Yeah, two are alumni.
Before I forget, did you want to bring up TSA enrollment?
TSA, we're going to be doing the same thing that we've done in prior years, and Lauren has those numbers where we cover hotel, and we offer a stipend of about $50, $55 for meals. Okay, I'm still waiting on, and I was out earlier, I'm sorry, I may have gotten it from George, the bowling information. Our bowling team is going to, I think, the universe finals for bowling. And there's some cost to that, and I asked them to give me all the details. I might have it in my email. I was talking to him earlier tonight. So I can email that to the board tomorrow, as soon as I get it. But TSA, we're going to do what we did in the past, and I think Martin has those numbers in front of him. He can read them off.
Well, in the past, as I recall, we had utilized that resolution where if they placed in the top 3, they paid their registration fees, and we had one student that placed 5th and asked if there's anything the district could do to help. But the other guidelines, as far as the rooms, the meals, and the transportation, has been the same as long as just my first year here. So that was the exception that was requested, was only place 5th, any help available.
Did we assign, like, is it GSA rate or something like that we could pay? Was it?
And depending on where they traveled to,
There was I know there's a hotel and meal reimbursement. I believe it was tied to GSA.
and the travel. Because sometimes they fly, sometimes they take a van because they have to transport equipment or whatever. But the big issue was only place 5th, any exception. So that's the answer we're looking for.
And the bowling trip is out of state, so that has to be board approved. It hasn't been presented yet, so that will be on the calendar.
Where did you say they're going?
I believe it's
Illinois.
It's always the
Do we have to vote on that before the next meeting?
No, it's at the end of this year.
Oh, okay.
So they were trying to say it was the last trip.
Yeah.
For the committee of the whole special voting, we'll have the TSA in there so we can get, and if you want to grant any exception or not, so. And then we'll.
Well, if no one has anything else, we'll adjourn. I'm sorry, Mr.
Second.
What would you like to appear on the COW for your budget, for your preliminary budget? Just the way it's presented in the second column?
Well, yeah, I would say we're expecting some detail. I know there's some numbers that Ms. Haynes has to clean up. They're small numbers, so.
Are you talking an actual millage? Is that what you're at?
Well, millage can wait until June.
Yes.
That's when the millage.
But you have to have that dollar amount, the expenditure budget of.
Document with the resolution on the COW, because you're going to have the special voting.
Unless something jumps out that's majorly different than what we saw.
We'll use
go
that
with
second.
what-
We'll use that number.
Go with what this number is.
Thank you very much.
Pending, there's some detail that several board members have asked for.
Yeah.
But in absence of any big revelation of changes or cuts.
In the case of special ed, if she can cut that 600, it'll be
Yeah.
a lesser number.
Well, the special ed, I know there's Amesway in there. Didn't we have that in your budget last year?
Yeah, I think so.
Then we moved it over to special ed. That was a big portion of it. That's like
We'll ask her
30,000.
to cut so many.
And she's got to because they could see the line in, but I know she was busy with IEPs. I went back and saw the email. The other thing is I was wondering is in the supply budget for facilities, like yes, of course, the extermination fee is all up because of the lantern fly. This is what we discussed last time. There was a
I
propane
have to
increase.
ask, why do we have to kill lanternflies? Let someone else kill lanternflies.
Yeah.
Give the kids a tennis racket and say it's a new.
Give them a roll of masking tape, they can put it around the tree. And then
But from the supply perspective in facilities, he didn't, the supply in facilities for BEC and APC, he didn't reduce the number. Did you want those numbers reduced? Because he wasn't sure what we were doing with BEC or this building. He has a set dollar amount for those two buildings, so that's, we could just leave it in there in case, I'm not sure. He has supply numbers in there for repairs and things that were gonna be necessary or might need to be done for BEC or APC. He left his numbers the same because we were not sure.
Well, we
have a number for BEC, although.
Yeah, I know, I don't think that's the one you wanna use.
To find out between what we must do versus what needs to get done eventually.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I have a question. Sorry. I feel like we went through this again. We're at the same spot we were before, kind of, right?
No, there's a lot of questions we answered. I mean, they did reduce some of their budgets from
Yeah,
last
there's some
time.
reductions in there. So the 600, is that what we're looking at next time? Is that what we're going to get the
Yeah, I
detail on
can
that?
get you complete
Yeah.
detail. There was
See
some that I had
some
found
there.
just sitting here, and I was just asking the question, because I can just leave that 600 and just explain it to you that way, and then
Yeah,
everyone can have a
Is Mr.
decision.
Mr. Miller had asked for some breakouts of.
Yes.
their-
And I've already emailed Scott Matt, so he should have something broken out for them.
Mr. Shoulders, I did not look at who that email went to. I know it's, you said, only you and I might got that email from Mr. Thompson as far as the report. Now, Mr. Thompson is making a presentation on the 14th for at the Cal, right? With his, so why don't, we'll send the whole board the preliminary report that came back. Mr. Thompson has not drilled down for his, this is just the overall recommendations from the masonry contractors. So you can look at it before the meeting, and then Mr. Thompson will make a presentation on the 14th, if it was what he's actually recommending, I believe, right? So.
I think we're also asking, I mean, the 600 element still is going up $800,000. And we haven't seen any details. We really can't make any suggestions for production or approval without having some of the details. And last time we asked for this, we got each individual line item. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for something like a 610, 620.
So we go down one level. Let's go down one level, right?
That's what Ms. Haynes said she could do.
Yeah, I think
Software. Next year, it'll be, yes, it should be.
Next year.
I'll do it without the software now, but next year it'll even be faster, so.
I can't even do it.
Did you raise your hand, Mr. Scott? I'm sorry.
I did, I moved my hand raised. Mr. Strobel,
Are you guys second? Is it?
All right, let's go home, right?
All right, well then the budget meeting is concluded at 9:25.